All right, welcome to the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. Today's episode, I've stuffed up the intro, Joel, and you think with two podcasts on here, we'd be able to get that right. And how many episodes have I done? But we'll leave it in. We've got Joel. Joel's the CMO Chief Marketing Officer of Jim's Group. And we've been connected on LinkedIn for a while. And I see, I like your post on LinkedIn, Joel, if I could just give you a little introduction first.
Thanks.
Because as a business guy and a business owner, I like that your LinkedIn content it's not Jim's content, it's Joel's content about Jim's. And you're kind of thinking behind the marketing often you tell Jim stuff, but often you're like, oh, we had this post, it went this, and this is what I was thinking. And I just find it interesting. But I also think that it's an interesting thing because Jim's is it's an iconic group. It's a controversial group at times. It's kind of everything. And so I think, and you do, I mean, this is just my rambling intro, but for those who have ever watched any Jim's content, and we do have Jim's contractors who listen to this for sure, I get messages and stuff, but a lot of the interview stuff, you've been in videos, they probably, if they've ever seen anything that's put out by Jim's, that's a good chance that you were the person creating the videos, interviewing the person, talking. So I wanted to invite you on and talk about all that kind of stuff. So welcome to the podcast, Joel. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for the introduction, Luke, and thank you very much for the nice stuff about LinkedIn. LinkedIn can be very place where you have these LinkedIn influencers who post a selfie, which is nothing to do with the post, and write something with ChatGPT, which is not a story that happened to them, and gets 1,000 likes. Then I'll do a post which has got a really good bit of content in there, a little bit of an insight you might get too. So I'm glad that you enjoyed the LinkedIn post, and I really appreciate that. And thanks for having me on.
I think LinkedIn is becoming my favorite social media site if you follow the right people. And you're right, there is these garbage people who the ChatGPT stuff. You can tell when stuff is ChatGPT, can't you? And everyone's like, "Oh, it's amazing." No, you can tell. You can. It's. I mean, if you edit it up, if you got it to write the majority of it, and then you edited sort of most sentences to put your swing on it, it tricked me. But yeah, there is a lot of that kind of. Yeah, the other thing that annoys me, and this has got nothing to do with anything, but that's what podcasting is about. The people who will give life advice or business advice stuff, and that they're like a junior software developer at like an average company, but they want to be part of the in crowd with their here's my business advice on LinkedIn article. So if you don't follow those guys, it's pretty good.
It's pretty funny. There is a certain formula that works, and then the one where you should always be careful of is here's how I went from $0 to $10,000, or I went from being homeless to a copywriting master or whatever in 6 months, and they have their big thread with all their stuff. And what a lot of people do on LinkedIn now is what you can do with ChatGPT is you can copy all like Justin Welsh's LinkedIn or whoever's a big LinkedIn influencer, and you can basically paste it into ChatGPT and say, based on these 10 hooks, give me something about this, and it'll basically write it in the style of that person, and that does a really good job as well. So with LinkedIn, for me, if you're ever going to use the platform, if you want to game the system and get 20,000 followers, there is a format you can follow, which is really, really easy. But for me, like more when I use the platform, I just want to put out something I think's got some little bit of value to it and can help other people. And I try and put content out to try and help other franchise brands grow, or people who want to grow a franchise brand with insights rather than hiding it all. I think being transparent with that sort of stuff and just trying to give some value is the way to go with that platform. But you're right, LinkedIn is probably the most positive platform on social media. I think it's probably one of my favorite as well. You get a lot of positivity, and you've got a lot of good connections. Like you've messaged me on LinkedIn and stuff like that, and here we are. So it's really good for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, what you're talking about with you slipped in something there, which was helping the other franchises. I agree with this philosophy. There's a new. Not brand new, but sort of last 15 years of transition, I guess, with the social media from a marketing philosophy as us versus them to a more helpful style. If you've got to stay within the business realm, you'd have people like your Gary Vaynerchuk's or your Alex Hormozzi's, people who would give away business advice for free and help other businesses grow. All rising ships, rising tide raises all the ships. That kind of philosophy, and that's at the heart of the podcasting stuff. It's at the heart of what we want to do here, because it's funny. I meet people, who listen to this podcast like multiple times. I was at my mum's house and I walked outside my mum's house, and it was a short period of time I was recording the podcast in my mum's garage for a month or two. And I walked out of the house, and the guy mowing the lawn across the street recognized me, and he was like, "Oh, I listened to the podcast, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, we had a great chat, and I walked away. I was like, technically speaking, that's a competitor. But, these people are friends. And, anyways, I like that type of thinking. I don't like the combative, we're better than you, you suck, this is second class, the old Pepsi and Coke videos, someone drink this one sucked. What are your thoughts on all that?
No, I agree with you 100%. And the whole gym strategy for marketing, from social media, from my point of view, in 2019, when I took it over, really, was just started building it from there, was the Gary Vee stuff. So I saw the Gary Vee stuff, and I was like, why don't we do that with gyms? Because we're engaging. I wasn't involved in social media. I was running the legal and documents department. And my plan was never to stay with gyms, and I sort of just morphed into it because we were engaging this company to run the gym script. Social media was pretty bad. I'm like, well, let's get into Gary Vee. And I was the same as you. Why aren't we doing all this sort of stuff? Because all the stuff you see online with Jim and get all that sort of content, he was saying internally for years, and I heard it all the time. But it's just like no one was putting that online. So it was literally just basically the Gary Vee model, apply it to Jim's group, and just learn and fuddle my way through it. And then that's exactly what we try and do. So we try and just give everything away in terms of our insight, like talk about fees, how much fees cost, how everything works, so that when someone, if they do want to come with us, there's nothing really to hide. They can learn everything they need to online about our content. And we find that, I'm not trying to do a gyms plug here, but all the prospects who come to training now, every single one of them go down the rabbit hole in the YouTube videos and watch it all. And for us, that's great. So they know that they're going to get in there. They might watch the day on the road with the franchisee for an hour, and they see it's not going to be easy work. They all say it's hard work, but the rewards are there. So we love seeing people who come in with that mindset. But we're the same as you. I think franchising in general gets a really bad rap. Whenever there's a bad story about a Domino's or, God forbid, a gyms, well, whatever it is, it gets really picked up in the media. They love those stories because they know it gets clicks online, and it's a lot of misconceptions about franchising. So back in 2019, I wanted to do all these live videos and all this stuff just to be real transparent, so that people can ask us in a live forum for an hour with the CEO and founder about anything negative, positive, and we give a live answer, right? So we just need to be transparent because the franchising industry is really bad for that. There is no transparency in franchising. They hide all the information until you give them a deposit or whatever it is. Like even with training, you can't do training with the franchise system unless you pay. You're in the franchise, right? With us, we allow it for free. So and there's a lot of really bad, ruthless franchise systems out there who just want to take your 70 grand or 80 grand, suck someone in who's put their life savings in, and then all of a sudden, it just falls out. So we try and be real transparent in what we do. And it's what you said, it goes back to the Gary Vee, Alex Hormozy sort of stuff. And it's been built from 2019. If you go back to 2019 and see our content to now, there's a massive progression. But the intention was there, and we've sort of leveraged off that, and we've got better as we go on.
Friends, I hope you're going well. I'm in the warehouse because I want to show you this. This is, amongst all the mess, the new background for the podcast for 2024. And maybe even slightly after Christmas, we might do a podcast with this. But I want to show you it because we're going to make some epic content for the next year. I've got a lot of plans, can't tell you about them now, but they're super exciting. And if you want to be part of that, jump on the Patreon, keep supporting it. Genuinely, all this stuff is being paid by the people who support on there. I want to show you this as well. This is my fertilizer rack with all the Match Play products from the Launch Shed. Now, you can only get these products, which are exactly the stuff I'm using. You can see it's in the rack there. If you get a trade account, so sign up to a trade account, jump on there, you'll be able to get access to that sort of stuff because it's not on the normal Launch Shed account. Say you heard about us through the podcast and go through there. If you're looking for fertilizers, wedding agents, all that kind of stuff, that's where we grab everything. They've been awesome supporters of the podcast, and it's partly what allows us to do the cool things we're doing now. Let's get back into the podcast. There's something about, I want to jump straight into this because this is what a lot of people are going to want to talk about from a marketing perspective with you. I mean, there's lots of questions they would ask, but I think at the forefront is Jim is this kind of guy, and I don't know why it is, because obviously he came on the podcast and my experience with Jim was fantastic. Like it was a lot of people commented, they loved the podcast. However, he rubs people the wrong way for whatever reason. And some people, okay, there's some people out there, a percentage of the population, who are always going to hate you when you put
Mm.
anything out, right? Let's call it 1%. It doesn't matter, like, here's how this certain diet helped me. Well, you're an idiot,
Yeah.
And then here's how this was great. And you're an idiot. And they're all different, like, so there's that. But the ratio seems to be higher. I've got some ideas because like there's some certain things like Jim can be blunt, but also there's tall poppy syndrome.
Mm.
And, he's kind of the only really big player in the residential gardening scene. So it's kind of like 20,000 independents and,
Yeah.
yes, all due respect to Fox and
Yeah.
VIP. So these are the things that go through my head. But my personal experience, having talked to Jim for close to 2 hours at one point in time in my life, which is not anywhere near as much as you would deal with him, but it was positive. And yet I hear so much negative online. So what are your thoughts on that? Where do you think the hate comes
Oh,
from?
look, I think the way we edit videos doesn't help. Like, we try and start with a controversial statement for a lot of stuff we do. So if that's people,
so it's your fault.
It's my fault. Yeah, no, and look, Jim doesn't like doing video. He does videos because he knows it's good for the business. So since 2019, I just made him do video, and he's gotten a lot better. But his personality, like in his book, even he says he's not a social person. His wife says he's on the spectrum, and he probably is. To be honest with you, he's on the spectrum in some way. But this is a guy who's in Mensa. He's got a really high IQ. But he doesn't understand like giving a political answer or anything like that. He just can't do it. He can't give you a political answer or consider your feelings before giving an answer. Whereas I'll do that. I've got a bit of empathy, right? So he's got no filter. He'll give you an honest, straight shooting answer. And, and he's real passionate about what he speaks about. So if he's talking about a topic, and he may be wrong about some things, which he is sometimes, to be honest. But it can definitely rub people up the wrong way. But in regards to our marketing and stuff, look, we cut it from certain angles where we will try and cut it from a controversial statement, which I know might annoy a few people, and I know they're going to engage with it. But the person who's engaging it, who might be a successful independent, they're not going to become a Jim's franchisee. They're not who I'm after. I'm after the guy who might not have known that you can make that much money being a part of Jim's Mowing, or just the gardener in general. Or I'm after the person whose business may be struggling a little bit and they want to make it a bit easier by coming with Jim. So the successful independents, this stuff you comment on our things is great. It's a bit annoying because you think, it's not for you or whatever, but I understand they're engaging with it and helping it, but it's not for them. But look, Jim's a straight shooter. He's very, very honest. Obviously during the lockdown as well, he was very divisive. We pushed him a bit from that to sort of be a champion for small business and the local contractors and stuff like that. And that was a little bit thing from my end to do that. But he's a straight shooter. He is who he is, and what you see with our content. We do a live Ask Jim on every 3 weeks in training, which we used to do weekly, which was a live thing. We used to answer everything, negative, bad, whatever. We had former franchisees, current franchisees, people who didn't like him, whatever, and we'd answer literally every single question, and he'd give a straight answer, and you always know where you stand. But look, he's not one to have relationships. If you meet him like outside, and he's not going to ask you how's the wife and the kids and stuff. He doesn't know how to do that sort of stuff. It's all about business and he can talk about what he can talk about, and that's just the way he is. But look, he rubs people up the wrong way because he speaks very passionately. He speaks very certain about what he speaks about as well. In terms of tall poppy, that's just the Australian way, isn't it? A bit, you put yourself out there online, no matter what you do. Like, you could go around doing free mows like Tim and stuff doing Nathan, and they're still going to cop hate. So it's just one of those things where you put yourself online, you're gonna get it no matter what your subject matter is, right? So you just got to just wear it and move on. It's just social media comments, so it's not a big deal.
No, it's true, but it is, it's just fascinating. Like, you talk about the controversy and leaning into controversy because it's putting you in front of an audience that, although a lot of your comments might be, what's the word? A lot of the comments you might get from your podcast clips or whatever you're putting out there might be negative. You've got a small number of people, I should say, that is like, I'm getting curious about this. And the most obvious one recently was what happened with the Muddy Boots podcast.
Oh, yeah, with Keith.
And I forgot, and I should have done this beforehand. I recorded a podcast earlier today, and then I had a small gap in between, and I was like, damn, I forgot that didn't Jim go on their
Yeah,
podcast after all the
yeah.
controversy
Keith
in the end?
apologized.
So I haven't
Yeah,
listened to
Keith
that.
apologized over email. Said no problem, Keith. Jim would love to do your podcast, and Jim was on. It was a really cordial, really nice podcast. But like that was just me being like, trying to do, the reaction video, the drama sort of video. I got that sent to me from someone on LinkedIn actually who I never even met. So have you heard this? And I listened to him going, geez, where's this come from? It's a bit of a servant. I go, Jim, we're going to play you this thing in real time and you're going to react to it. I'm not going to show you what it is. Just listen to it. And what you saw was his reaction. And then we did it with a couple of our other guys as well, Matt and John, who are our trainers. And that was pretty much it. But it got people talking. Keith obviously knows what he's talking about with the other lady who hosts it. They're real passionate about what they do. And yeah, Keith heard it and said, sorry to offend you, Jim. I didn't mean to offend you. No problem. Get him on the podcast. And they were talking about gardening and it was really cordial and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I heard it was in the Lawn Mowing Contractors Association group. And I had a couple of franchisees go to their franchisor about it, a bit annoyed. And they sent it to me. I'm going, just let it go. I mean, it's more just to get some attention and stuff like that. But it was pretty harmless fun. It was just trying to, someone's called us out. We're not going to just accept that. We're going to go back at you, So that was more that sort of thing.
Well, I realize I've done the audience a little bit of a disservice here because you and I know what we're talking about, and maybe half the audience does. But I'll tell the story. So basically, the Muddy Boots podcast, which I listen to on rare occasions, is a different style of podcast. Basically, it's more of an advice podcast. People send in messages, ask for advice, blah, blah, blah. The guy on there, Keith, basically said something to the effect of, and correct me if I'm misrepresenting anybody, but it was something to the effect of, Jim's guys, former accountants, whatever, they're not real gardeners. They don't know what they're talking about. I wouldn't hire those sorts of guys. And you then played that video to Jim. And then Jim had a response. And the response from Jim, now, are you a Facebook guy? Do you go on Facebook groups at all?
Not in groups. I've deliberately kept myself out of the Lawn Mowing Contractors Association group. I think I'd get too worked up seeing all that stuff get shared in there sometimes. So.
Yes, okay. So Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia, LMCA, there was a lot of hate towards Jim. Now, there's certain people like myself, and that sounded like, I was patting myself on the back a bit too much there. That's not what I intended. But there was a group of people who just don't, it's whatever, Keith has probably said something a little bit too strong. Jim has probably said something a little bit too strong. But then there's a bunch of people who really got worked up.
Yeah.
And it became, this will annoy you. You shouldn't join this group. Maybe you should. You can have it on. It'll be fun. But there's a bunch of people who've been talking about whenever anything happens, because Jim's response, I'm not doing a good, I'm telling the story too quickly. Jim's response was, no, we actually do training. We have 3 days in-person training. And then what happened was a lot of people took the piss with that, and whenever anything goes wrong that includes a Jim's person in it, people will comment now saying, is that what you get from the 3 days training? You know what I mean?
Should have said 6.
But you also put up a video. 6 days. But then he also did talk about ongoing contact with franchise. What are they called?
Franchisors.
I can't remember how you... Yeah, it's too similar. The words are too similar. Anyways, but... it's this whole controversy that came from it. And I wonder how many people are being just funny trolls and just the chance to make a joke is just too good to pass up. And they don't really care. And the people who really care, you know what I mean? That all happened.
Look, we troll a bit sometimes. I know exactly when I'm doing it, what's going to happen. I don't know how to the extent that it gets that reach. And I knew that one went pretty berserk because I got a couple of messages the next day about it. The LMCA group, I love it how a lot of times they comment with Dan Cale and stuff as a franchisee of ours and things like that, which is great because those comments we can then use to make videos with as well, and we encourage that. We love the negative comments because it's great, so we can address them. We use Reddit, we use comment sections all the time to guide some of our short form content. But it blew up big time. It wasn't my intention to blow up the way it is, and I wasn't doing it to really have a crack at Keith, but when he went in pretty strong on us, and I thought, we can't let that one slide.
Keith, he opened himself up. Yeah, I feel like if you're going to take a big swing, if you're going to shoot some shots, you got to be able to take some shots, and I do appreciate. Like I don't have a skin in the game in any of this. I'm not associated with you or with him, But for him to then go, oh look, it was probably, I don't know what the apology was, but it's something probably of the lines of, oh, I probably came across a bit wrong and
he's a very nice man,
whatever.
Keith. He's very nice.
Yeah, and you know how it is. Like I wouldn't be surprised, to be fair, and you're on the podcast here, so let's just be transparent. There probably have been. I think Dan Cahill's a great example. I would like to one day have Dan Cahill on the podcast. I've been thinking about that basically since we started. Don't know why I've never asked him, but Dan Cahill's story, for those who don't know, he basically was working at McDonald's, and then one day he joined gyms and worked his backside off and did quite well for himself. The reality is that is the story that Keith was trying to criticize, but that's also so much of the independent side of the spectrum. It's not the people, like the last podcast I just recorded was with a guy named Craig Sullivan, who does some of the most insanely good hedge trimming work you've ever seen in your life. There's not many Craig Sullivans around the country. Most of the independents, most of the franchisees people, they're meeting the market where it's at. It's like saying most of the hamburgers sold are probably from McDonald's Hungry Jack's. Not everybody could be Michelin star restaurant, hamburgers. That's almost like a oxymoron, isn't it? Michelin star hamburgers. But you couldn't have every restaurant be a Michelin star because the market wants at a certain price point, or they don't care about the Michelin star stuff. At the same way, the Craig Sullivans and the insanely high quality detail landscape designs and stuff, there isn't a market for that. You need people who are just happy to make it neat, tidy, be reliable, professional, respectful. And it's kind of not really a criticism. That's kind of what success is for a gym.
It's a great point, Luke. And that's the point with our businesses, is like you make it to what you want. If you're like, I've interviewed guys on our podcast who's 20-year greenskeeper at a professional golf course, right? So the guy knows what he's doing and he's coming in, and you've got a local lady who's getting a professional 20-year greenskeeper for doing their garden, right? Or you have the ex-CEO who's just sick of their corporate garden and do it. So yeah, you have a varying levels of skill sets in gyms, absolutely. We have the 6-day training course, and you have guys who already know it all because they've already qualified horticulturists, and you have guys who don't. And sometimes the guys who don't come in with that skill set before, who try really, really hard and take 4 times as long to do anything because they want to not stuff it up. Like John Wilds, for example, is a good one, who's our trainer. And then they just flourish because they obviously get better and better and better. Then you have the guys who come in who might know everything or might have that previous trade experience in the profession as a greenskeeper or work for a landscape or whatever, and they get a lot of complaints because they rush things and stuff. So we've got around 2,300 franchisees now. And look, you try and get as best quality as you can all the time, and we have a really, really strict compliance process in gyms. And people who are franchisees, former or current, will know how strict the compliance process is in gyms. So it's really, really strict. So we try and get that everyone to a certain level, and we do provide opportunities for people if they want to train, but that's up to them. A lot of guys do the horticulture certificate, 2 and 3 when they leave if they want. Not everyone has that, but some people do. But it's up to you, and that's the beauty of it. You can build your business to have 20 staff, and you can do whatever you want. Or you can be the sole trader who just loves doing hedging, mowing, whipping, whatever it is, and that's it. So, but it's up to you what you want to do. And look, it's a very annoying, when a customer has an issue with a service and it gets out a bit, like it really, really hurts us and hurts Jim as well, because we really try to negate that. And I understand the comments that people, you do 3-day training, which he's most misspoke in the video. But it's really 6 days. And look, I know that's it might not send a lot to a lot of people, but if someone's starting up a business sometimes, they might just have a ute, chuck a mower in, and away they go. Whereas at least with our guys, they've got some sort of foundation. And if something does happen, they do have support and people they can lean on. And also, I want to point out as well, with a lot of the videos, it does sound, sometimes I see online like Jim hates independence or he's not for independence. It's not the truth at all. He's got so much respect for independents who have, like yourself, in your business, you'd be a perfect example. Someone who's made that business for themselves for what it is so much harder than doing it with a Jim's Mowing franchise. When you come to Jim's Mowing franchise, you got the brand, you got the lead, you have to worry about doing website marketing, all that sort of stuff, right? You've got a really good chance to succeed. So independents who are successful are the top quality, high echelon business people, right? And as Jim says, any high quality independent he'd give a free franchise to, because he just knows how good they would be in the business. And look, the independent versus Jim's Mowing discussion is always an interesting one. I don't know. I don't look too much at what franchisees post on social media, but like I don't see any of our franchisees going around negatively commenting on any other independents, and I don't see. And we've actually got I've got an engagement person on our account who works, and I tell them go around on any independent in Australia and leave them some nice comments on their work and stuff, because I think that's good for the industry and online as well. So when it comes back to you, like when you do a video or whatever, and you see a lot of comments and having a crack, sometimes you don't want to just do the corporate line and just sort of just go straight bat it and let through the keeper. Sometimes you do want to go back a bit just to sort of correct a lot of things. And that's what we try and do in our content. A lot of the stuff is reactionary, and if someone leaves a negative comment in, let's say TikTok, and it might be an independent, fantastic for us. Screenshot it, just do a short form video, address it, and that way we're interacting back and forth. But Jim's got the most respect for any successful independent because he knows how hard it is to do that from scratch. And as I said, if there's any successful independents who ever wanted to come do Jim's Mowing, he'd be a free franchise most of the time from the franchisor for sure.
You touched on something there about like giving good feedback to people. You touched on basically the gyms guys going out and supporting independents. Here's the thing. I don't think there's actually a real competition going on right now for jobs, right? And I think you know where I'm getting at here, because you guys started a whole division because you had too many leads. You couldn't even support them. I talked to as many people in the industry as anybody else would. And the number one problem, I had a phone call with a guy on the other side of the country before about an employee issue, right? Here's the number one problem that you have right now. And the number one problem I have right now is we do not have enough people, good people, I should say, to actually fulfill the requests that are out there. The issue is the new guys starting out who don't know marketing like you or I do, they don't know how to get those jobs. So there's these jobs that are going out there and nobody can find anybody good, or this, that, whatever. And you guys feel like they're starving, and the older guys feel like they're run off their feet with requests. Although that has changed a little bit with some of the interest rate stuff, but for years and years and years, it has been an oversaturation of jobs and an undersupply of people, right? And so are independents and gyms really competing with each other? Because at the end of the day, I think it's more about distributing. If you could somehow distribute the jobs evenly, which you never could, like you would have to control the universe essentially to be able to do that. I think there is enough for everyone. I think there's more than enough for everybody, to the point where big businesses like I won't name anybody, everyone will know who I'm talking about, but the big commercial business out there really have to lower their standards just to get warm bodies in, because the contractual obligations they have, and just the challenges like that. I mean, that's the world we're living in right now. So you hear what I'm saying about, like, are you really competition to an independent? Are you really? Or are you kind of on the same
In reality, probably not, because obviously we have another division called Bizza, which a lot of franchisees don't like, but basically that's because we 200,000, 300,000 unserviced leads, 1,000 leads a year. It's not good for us. Someone rings gyms, I'm never going to call you again because I can't get anyone, right? So that's why it came. And obviously there's a lot of mowing unserviced in certain times of the year, especially spring, and those will go to local independent contractors if they want to take them. So we do have that as well. But you're right, it's probably more in an online bubble that you see. There's maybe if you do a video, you might get 20 comments negative, and you presume that most of them got a mowing business or whatever, and that's probably where it exists. But you're right, there's so much work to go around, and our franchisees do struggle finding good workers. That's the one thing, like you probably know yourself, that's hindering a lot of them to grow. They want to get out of the sole trader realm, but they just can't find good people, and it's very, very hard. We're trying to start, I think we're still going through this whole process, but an RTO to try and get people to come in and do a horticulture certificate. It doesn't mean they'd be at gyms, but just to try and get some more people who have got some skills to go with our franchisees. And that's not just for mowing, that's for fencing and all this sort of stuff. It's a really, really big problem. It's even a problem for our head office trying to find good people. So it's extremely tough.
Oh, everywhere. Everywhere. And it's so much of what makes success in the industry is actually it's not that hard. So it's not like we have doctors and there's an undersupply, and the undersupply is because it takes 8 years or whatever it is to become a doctor. It's difficult. It's not difficult to get into, and it's not like to succeed at a at an independent or gym's average level of service. It's about being reliable, punctual, respectful, working hard, doing good quality work, and your plant identification and the quality of your fertilization knowledge and all that sort of stuff. It's important to a degree, but it's so what I'm getting at is like it's not like we're such a difficult industry and it's just hard to find people. We just need people who have something that's called character.
Yeah.
Remember that back in the
That's
day?
what Jim's always goes on about. Jim, I don't know if Jim mentioned it during your podcast, but he talks about character. And his whole research project is trying about increasing people's character through epigenetic things and all that sort of stuff. So character, you're right. That's what he says. Character, it's all about character. And the franchisees who do the best with us, or businesses like yourself who do the best, it's generally not the most highest IQ or knows this the best or whatever it is. It's the people who have that character. And it's all those things you speak about. It's an intangible quality almost in a way. But those little things you talk about, which are important to people, when people have character, that matters. They do all those sorts of things. But as Jim says, like if we could hold a spotlight on people and just know which franchisees who come to our training has got a character element, even though it's a really broad term, we'd be a lot more successful. But yeah, character is everything. And how do you find people with character? It's very, very hard. Like I've interviewed a lot of people at head office and people who come with MBAs and they sound awesome and all that sort of stuff. And you get them in and within 2 weeks, you realize it's the worst person. And then it's the person who's been there for 5 years in another role, who then you shift because they're a good operator. They can rock up on time and they've got some ideas and initiative, even though they went to uni. That person ends up being fantastic. Yep. So you just don't know until you give people a go. Unfortunately, character is just you just don't know until people get in there. Their actions speak louder than words and resumes. And unfortunately for our franchisees, as you would experience yourself, it's a huge problem. And it's the number one thing from stopping growth for our businesses is just finding good staff and reliable people who are willing to have a go.
Staying on the negative thoughts for a second, I'm going to ask you, you're going to have to forgive me for asking you this question. It might be a bit awkward. That won't be that awkward. I've set it up too much. But what criticisms of Jim's group, not Jim's as a human being, Jim's group, do you see online that are actually accurate? Because I think a lot of them are probably over the top, uninformed, just grumpy. But there must be times where you look at it and go, we could learn something from that.
Look, I think, so Reddit's a great one. There's a few things when they might go on like a financial Facebook groups, like so I'm looking at Jim's car detailing franchise and you see all these comments and then, a lot of it's completely wrong. But look, sometimes the one accurate thing sometimes is franchisor variance. So we ran 250 franchisors. Yeah, like anything, you have franchisors who are better than others. And if a franchisee who comes in the system and then with not a franchisor who may be checked out or who is not as supportive as they can be, that can leave a really bad taste in their mouth and they can tarnish the whole Jim's group system saying it's bad. But really, it's just the franchisor administering the system. We do as best as we can to try and make sure we stay on top of the franchisors. And it's very hard to be a franchisor on Jim. If you've got one franchisee who's got Jim's mobile number and email and goes to them and says, my franchisor's not doing this, it puts a spotlight on the franchisor and it literally puts their whole business at risk. So that's the one way staying about it. But, probably franchisors who aren't in the, doing the right thing is a big issue because it just tarnishes the whole system. Because the system's the system. It's the same across any division. If you follow it, you're generally going to do all right. But that franchisor is a really important part of a new franchisee's success. And if you don't have the right one or you're not paired with the right one in your region, and it might be tough for you. So I generally think the franchisors, if you have really good ones, it makes the world of difference. If you have one who's not overly as good or maybe checked out for whatever reason, they may be just, it's not the best thing for us. So I'd say franchisor, your quality of your franchisor is something where if they do complain online about their franchisor, it could be true, it could not be true, but it could be either way. But that's a really, really big problem, and something that we try and improve all the time. I don't know if you've got any comments you've seen online which you maybe want to ask me about, which you think may be true or maybe not be true, and I can maybe shine a light on.
So I've got a little criticism that I think this is something that is kind of niche, because I think the way that you and I think about stuff like the Gary Vee stuff or the business stuff, marketing point of view, it would be fairly similar, on the fairly same side of track. When I interviewed Jim, he told me the story. I think was it Sunshine Gardening? They tried to start off with and they failed, and then they decided. Yeah, they tried. So yeah, not
Yeah.
gardening, cleaning. That's right. It was. They thought they'd try a cleaning thing from gardening, and they used a different name. It failed, and then somebody was like, "You should use gyms as a name." My criticism of gyms has always been that everything is gyms, and the reason is that, and I see this with Jim's Beauty that just came out. I mean, this
Yes.
will be everyone's going to want me to talk about this as well. Um, and I don't know what your honest thoughts. If I was working for gyms, the way I would think about it from my marketing brain would be that it sends like a message. Jim's system could work in almost any industry. I believe that, right? But putting Jim's face on everything makes it seem to me like it's what's the saying? It's jack of all
Yeah,
trades,
for
master
sure.
of none, right? And I kind of feel like it dilutes. And maybe this is one of the things now that I'm talking about it that gets people on the negative, because it's like, who the hell does this guy think he is that he can enter so
Yeah.
many industries? But we know from a background, and any reasonable person who's been in business knows that the system is just, that's really what it's about. And you create a good franchise system, you have great people working in it, it'll work in any industry. But the brand name might be getting people caught up.
No, I
Do you
love
see
it. No,
where
I
I'm
love it. It's
coming from?
fantastic. It's a really good comment. Back in 2018, we actually did an independent survey of people who don't use gyms, and one of the comments was exactly what you said. You know, gyms are jack of all trades and master of all none, and it occasionally comes up still. So I sort of come up with a brand position for gyms, because Gyms Group as a brand was never really known as a brand. You know, so Gyms Group, and I said, like, you're a
Yeah.
local expert. That's what we need to be becoming, because people didn't know we were local in the area. They thought it was someone subcontractor said from head office. They didn't know it was a local family business, and they didn't know we were an expert at what they do. They thought the mowing guy was rocking up to do the building inspection or do the conveyancing. So we really try hard, and we tell our franchisees, when you post content online, you need to show you're a local in the area, a local family business, but you're an expert at what you do, which is why we allowed franchisees to have
Yeah.
UGs, to have social media accounts. So we've got like the biggest pool care influencer in Australia called Jason from Aussie Pool. He's called the Aussie Pool Guy. He's around 200,000 followers. He's one of our franchisors. And the great thing about that is it's all about showing his expertise at what he does. So you see Jim's Pool Care and you follow that guy, you know he's really good at what he does. So we're really different in franchising. We allow franchisees to have free reign with their social media accounts, to create videos, to show off what they do. And I teach it in training. I teach a social media and AI session. And that's all I spend time on, is showing that you're local in the area, you're a business owner, and you're an expert at what you do. And that's what you need to show, because when we did those surveys, that's exactly the comment we got. Jack of all trades, master of none. In regards to the brand being on everything, yeah, look, I think that lesson from Sunline, he just put it in his head from an early day. Never, ever deviate from gyms, no matter what the product is, service it is. If it's going to work, it's going to work. But he's also, I don't know if he talked about it in his interview with you, but we found from over the years with divisions, it's never the service. It doesn't matter what service it is, it's the person. If the person who's the divisional franchisor, who owns the division, is responsible for it, if they're good, they've generally made any service over the years work. Like test and tag, who would have thought appliance testing would be the biggest in Australia? Building inspections, it's another one, biggest in Australia. Who would have thought, right? So, but they've got really good divisional leaders. I had divisional leaders who are really, really good. Whereas you have other services who fail in gyms. It's not because of the service, it's just because of the divisional leader. So Jim's philosophy is simply, we'll try anything because I just don't know what will work. He'd love to be able to predict that division will work or that division won't. But he just gives anyone a go at this new divisional model we have, because he just can't see the character of the person running the division. They can come in and have the best plan. We're going to have 50 franchisees by this time, all that sort of stuff, and they fail. Whereas another guy might come in with the division, like Beauty, for example, with Beauty. And like when I heard Beauty myself, even for me, that was a bit of a stretch. I'm generally understands Jim's philosophy. And I said to Rocky, like,
You're being, so that's your political answer that you were saying. I can do a political answer.
For me,
there it is.
It was a bit of a stretch. And I was very negative at the start, but the Jim believed in the guy running it. So the guy who was running it was in our laundry division. He had 25, 30 franchisees. He could sell franchises. He had experience in the industry, and he could build it up. And that's what Jim's like. Just give it a go. I'm like, all right. For me, I'm like, from a PR point of view, it's great because I'm going to put that logo online. And the next thing you know, I've got influencers on TikTok doing videos, taking the piss, but that's okay. Any attention was good. And the next thing, Jim's on a Today Show. I'm running down going, you're like, oh, can you get him something pink? I had to go to Kmart, buy him a size 8 woman's shirt because nothing would fitting him as a man. So he's in the pink on the Today Show the next day, running the line about, it's not that much different from, from doing the edges on a lawn, just a different thing. So give him that line to say, and away he went. But yeah, look, I think just from his business philosophy is he's willing to give anything a go. Like, and the videos are a perfect example. He doesn't like it. He's an introvert, but he does it because it's good for his business, and he'll give anything a go. Like, he hates beer. He hates alcohol, right? So he hates alcohol. He hated it with a passion, and I convinced him to do it because I said it'll get taken in the media as it did. So he's willing to give anything a go. He loves Richard Branson as well. So Richard Branson with Virgin puts Virgin on anything and makes it work. He's obviously nowhere near to that wealth or that level, but he loves Richard Branson and that sort of philosophy. And that's sort of just the hard and fast rules. He's willing to give any division a go. It does not matter what it is. As long as it can make $60 to $70 an hour for the franchisee, he's happy to give the person a go because he just doesn't know what's going to work or who's going to work. I mean, all of our successful divisions, I reckon half of them you wouldn't have predicted from the start. If I said 10 of these divisions failed, you might go, oh, geez, that should have worked. That should have worked. You just never know. So that's why he does it. But it's a great comment. It's what we're trying to work on all the time as well with content, trying to show that we're experts at what we do, and we allow franchisees to try and do that just to address that. And it's spot on what you said. We still get it occasionally, which means we've got a lot more work to do about that in the, just more in general awareness about that. But it's a really good comment, what you said, and it's something we try to work really hard on in our business.
Joe, out of all that, Joe, the number one thing I learned is that Jim's fits a size 8 women's shirt. That's.
I have to share that intimate detail. Yeah,
I know it.
That's how we roll.
Exactly. That's what we get. Yeah, everybody should just send him that as a present. Just size 8 women's. Hey, I'm impressed. Size 8 is. He's having way less kebabs than Zinger boxes.
He wants to live to 100, right? So he's so strict about health. So anything that can. Science says to live longer, he does it. So he exercises half an hour every morning without fail, does his weights in the morning, never misses. If he weighs himself in the morning, if he's 1 kilo overweight, he won't eat for the rest of the day. He's very, very strict with that sort of stuff.
Wow. You said he's probably on the spectrum. That's also a level of dedication that you need to succeed in any endeavor.
He hasn't missed a day of running since.
A good indication.
He hasn't missed a day of running since he was 14, he told me. He decided when he was 14 that's exercise was the best thing for you back in the day, and he hasn't stopped. He hasn't missed a day of exercise since he's been 14, which is true.
That's okay. Oh yeah, I haven't missed a Zinger box since I was 14 either. So it's the same level of dedication. Don't tell me otherwise, all right? What do you wish more independents knew about gyms as a group?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I think it's a bit hard, if you're an independent and you maybe want to take your mind away from having to have a website and market and all that sort of stuff and, come into the brand, we'll take you with open arms. And look, if the franchisor is a good franchisor, if you're a good independent, they will bring you on for free. I don't see why they would charge anything maybe besides stickering for a trailer and stuff like that. I think the independents as well, don't take a lot of the stuff we do seriously online. We do try and troll a bit for a reaction and stuff. So we're deliberately putting out stuff that might annoy a few independents, especially when we talk about earnings or those sorts of overarching bold statements. It's more just to get attention and to plant the seed to someone that there is a lot of potential in the gardening industry. I think there's a lot of arrogance from people who do law degrees and who are doctors and thumb their nose up about the cleaner and the fencer and that. But, people don't realize how good of a deal it is being a professional gardener. It's the highest level of professional happiness is florists and gardeners, right? On surveys and stuff. So, you can get paid really well. You can make more than your corporate job. Your mental health is going to be better and you're going to be fitter. And hopefully because of your fitness and your mental health, you're going to live a lot longer and be happier. And that's because I interview a lot of franchisees for our podcast of the Gyms Mowing when the Gyms Group one. And you just see the beaming. Like the guys after 10 years, they're all in great shape. They say it's the best thing that happened to me, which is getting out of that toxic work environment. And they all say the same thing. It's hard work, very hard work, but they just love it. And it's just a really good feeling to see that these people almost just escape that myth of doing that. And, it's annoying that people look down on gardeners or mowing people as well. I sort of get that sense sometimes as well. He does from Gyms Mowing or whatever it is. And it's just like, come on, they know they've got such a better deal than you. They're earning more money than you. This is independence as well. They're earning more money than you. They're happy. They get job satisfaction multiple times a day from seeing a job from start to finish. They get time to see their kids. They get flexibility. It's just such a great industry to get into, and independents, and we're trying to promote the industry as well. Even though we are promoting Jim's Mowing, we are trying to promote gardening, home services in general to people.
Yeah.
That it is such a great option for people. And like, give you an example, I did law commerce at uni, right? And I did law commerce at uni, and I was never going to be a lawyer, but I sort of shifted. I decided to stay at Jim's, but my whole thing was sold to me. You do your 12 years of working your backside off, and then you'll get eventually maybe made a partner, and that sort of thing. You're right. And then might have a lot less hair and overweight, and maybe have health issues and stuff like that. And I'm earning maybe 150 grand or whatever, and I've given up all this life over 10 to 12 years, where you can be a gardener, a professional gardener in business like yours, or a home services franchisee. You can earn a lot more money, work for yourself, be your own boss, be happy and healthier. Like, it's just such a great deal. But there's still so much skepticism around what you do, what our Jim's Mowing franchisees do. That people just don't know the potential or what the ability is to make it. And there's a great book called The Millionaire Next Door, which Jim always refers to. And the millionaires and the real happy people aren't the ones who are the lawyers, the doctors, the dentists and stuff. They're the guy who might have a bricklaying company, a paving company, a HVAC company, a gardening business, a landscaping business, these types of people. And I just think there's a real big stigma towards those industries and stuff. And the narrative we're sold in school, I don't know what you were told, but I was told everything was about your VCE, about your HSC or wherever you are. Everything was about that. If you don't get a good VCE score, you suck. You're going to be in the VCAL or the lower kids, and you can do a trade or something like that. And that was talked down upon. No one even talked about, hey, you could own a small business or you could own a business, which is why we go hard on TikTok, because a lot of kids on TikTok looking at being small business and want to hustle and stuff like that, when there's a really good answer just sitting right in front of them. It might be start your gardening business at a 15-year-old level, and you get so many good skills from it. And it's just something where I think our education system, and Jim goes on about all this sort of stuff, he's real passionate about it, but we just there's so much incorrect information about the gardening industry, mowing, having a mowing business, having a home services business in general. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to shine a light. Not even though we want people to come a Jim's franchisee, but if someone sees that and goes, geez, I didn't know you could make that much money doing fences or whatever, and goes and starts doing fences on the weekend and stuff, that's fantastic. And we try and show the potential, which is why we talk about earnings. You should talk. I think talking about earnings is important, because you just gives that motivation and that inspiration to people. And people might go, that's BS, and that's fine. Let them be critical. But the guy who thinks, I didn't know you could make that much money doing that, comes into training, and then their life's changed in 3 years' time, is a really good reward for us. And I've been here for 12 years, so I've seen this happen multiple times. So it's a really good feeling, and it's why we just keep doing it as much as we can. But we're not, with independence, the only thing I can probably say about Jim's is we're not there ever to talk down or to make disparage independence, even though maybe sometimes someone says a comment or something like that, but it's definitely not doing that. We're just trying to really shine a light that there's a better way for people who are unhappy in corporate environments and in a situation, that you can become a gardener, get a horticulture degree, and just be so much happier. And that's what I would say to that. It's a very long answer to your question, but yeah.
How dare you talk on a podcast? No, the people, I love long answers. It was good. Talking about, like, to push it even further is you didn't mention, there's a few things that you don't get in office jobs. Like, you can't see what you are doing often. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you're an accountant, and you're like, we changed some numbers or we changed some budgets, and we won't see that result for another quarter. Like, we won't know. And maybe your job is teaching students, right? And you can't really see their test scores improve until like you will see progress, but it's incredibly slow. If you're a Jim's or an independent lawn mowing contractor, 5, 10, 15, 20 times a day, you will turn around and be like, that looks different and better because of something that I did. And there's a huge job satisfaction to that is actually really rare in any indoor, well, not indoor because cleaning would be like that typical office job. It's like, I guess you probably get it a little bit with, like, say, a reel that does well or something. Absolutely. You can see the response. You can see, and you've made not a physical thing, but a virtual thing that can be seen. I guess it's almost physical. That's weird. But, you've made something that you can look at, or you've been a part of creating something that you can see. But that's rare. And I think there's a lot of that, which is, there's a whole side of work. You're right about school. It's about your test scores. It's about this. It's about that. But what do you really want in a job, right? If you really look at the bottom of it, it's like, I want a job that, I think most people would say something to the lines of, I want a job that has enough aspects of it that I enjoy. Obviously, it couldn't be, very rarely would be 100%, but enough that I enjoy so that the negative sides of it are not overwhelming, that I work with good people, that my pay is enough that I can live comfortably. Some people want insane money, but that's not actually that common. And maybe it's something that I get to the end of the day without feeling exhausted. So the hours are irrelevant. Everyone's got a different thing. It'd be something like that. And then if you were to say, get, when you're like car sales or something like that, and you start your filter and you're like, in this state with this vehicle, this make, and it just dwindles down all your options. Okay, you put those filters in on the jobs available. A lot of the jobs that were seen as sexy or desirable, or like doctor, psychiatrist, architect, they, they're very demanding, long work hours. Maybe, you spend a lot of time, maybe it's 80-20 in the wrong way, 80% stuff you don't enjoy, 20%. I talked on the last podcast. Now I'm rambling. The last podcast talked about how I'd hate to be a vet, because you think about how vets are usually, I'm thinking about my cousin here who wanted to be one. My younger cousin, female cousin, lovely girl. She wanted to be a vet because she loved animals, and then worked out one day that all vets do is kind of just put animals down or deal with animals that are on the verge of dying. And it's like, that's not as appealing anymore. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. And maybe 80% of the job isn't satisfying. Jump on a lawnmower, you're like, "Whew, never thought I'd enjoy this, but that looks good." That was dead a week ago. I did some stuff and it's coming back. Some signs of life. I'm proud of myself.
Absolutely. And that's what someone said to me ages ago. It's like, he goes to me, Joel, I've got the best job in the world. I get 8 times a day, I get job satisfaction. I can actually see what I'm doing. So you're 100% spot on. But I'm a bit lucky as well. Like, all the videos I do online, I actually meet a lot of the prospects in training. They always come up to me and say, "Oh, we're here because of the videos," or "We've seen all the videos." So I get to see a result of my work after 3 to 4 weeks. And Jim sort of blames me if we don't have enough franchisees in training, or we do have enough in training. I get both ends of the stick. But I get to see that every 3 weeks. People come in and how excited they are, and during the training week over 3 days, I actually meet most franchisees, and I annoy them with content all the time and doing things with them. But I get to see them. Then I get to get the benefit of seeing them 6 months later, because Jim sends an email to everyone after 30 days about how you're going, and some of them say it's the best thing ever, and then I interview them for the podcast and stuff like that. So I see them from training to a year later, or 2 years later, or 3 years later as well, and you get to see how happy they are and stuff like that. And one of our other divisions, which is not mowing, but is dog wash. And this is where it comes in. People work out, what do I like? And a lot of them say, I like animals. They come into dog wash, and you've got people who have done 27 years in the police force, right? This gal lady called Jen McWhinney, I interviewed her last week. 27 years in the New South Wales Police Force. You would have seen some things and gone through some stuff. She read this book.
She's seen a lot of dogs, that's for sure.
But there's a book called Ikagi or something about this Japanese thing about finding your purpose or whatever. And she read that book and did it. Mm-hmm. And she just saw Jim's dog wash, and yet that's me, and lined up with it. And I've caught up with her a couple of weeks ago for a podcast, whatever it was, and just beaming from ear to ear. She's booked out. She's just loving it. Earns more money as well than what she was as a police person, working with dogs as well. And she's just so happy. And when you see that sort of stuff, it just makes you feel good. And, we're just trying to, what I do is we're just trying to get that message out there more and more and more. Like, if you're not in a really good position, you can use this home services vehicle, no matter what it is, if it's gardening or dog wash or whatever, to change your circumstance. There is no catches. If you work hard, you can do that as well. It's not going to be easy, but that's what we do. But yeah, the gardening thing, I just think the highest level of happiness is gardeners and florists. I just think that's a no-brainer, and I think people just need to sort of get rid of the stigma when it comes to home services and working with your hands. There's so much more potential, and the way AI is going, like, we're going to need more people. More people are going to have to start looking at that option. I say this to all franchisees in training when I show them ChatGPT. So they'll take my job before yours. You're doing the smart thing. The guy on the excavator is doing the smart thing, or washing the dog or grooming. You're doing the smart thing. People are going to be in demand who have skills and can do those tasks around the home.
Totally. And Alex Hormozy said the same thing. Actually, I don't know if you saw that. He put a video out. So for those who don't know, Alex Hormozy is a famous kind of, what would you call him, a business thought leader kind of
Big
guy. He's
muscles
been quite
on the
successful in
juice.
gyms. He's got, yeah, but I say he's been successful in gyms. I meant literally like
With gym launch and stuff.
creating yes, like actual workout locations and selling them and blah blah. And a lot of people watch his content to learn about it. And somebody asked him, it was like, with AI, what would you do? And he's like, I'd do something like a service-based physical job like gardening. I think he also like plumbing, carpentry, that kind of stuff. But gardening is one of the ones that he said. And I was like, I'm 100% with you because like we use ChatGPT all the time, right? Like I've got a bunch of articles that I've written over the years. And I just say to, I've got a lady who helps me with my content, and I just say, Karen, can you literally copy and paste my article I wrote in 2019 and put it into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this so it can become a carousel? And I need 14 words on this page or this 23 characters on that page or whatever. And it does it. And then she sends it to me, and she does like 4 or 5 of them. I'm like, "It's done." You know, that's my. That would have taken me 6 hours to do, and that kind of stuff. You're like, man, and the bloody AI photos from DALL-E or stuff. But some people have no idea what we're talking about right now because they're so caught in the gardening. And do you know what, people? You don't need to know because I think you're pretty safe for a while. But basically, all the marketing jobs, legal stuff. I think ChatGPT passed a law exam, so you did good getting out of that industry. You know?
Yeah, no, but it's funny because it's going to be interesting how they regulate it. Even though we're off topic here, but like obviously lawyers don't want to be out of jobs, so they're going to lobby pretty hard with politicians and stuff and put in a lot of frameworks. But politicians can't put in frameworks about things they've got no idea about. You saw what happened with social media, so this is pretty much just going to be maybe the social media section over again where they've gone into it too late and they're trying to make policies and decisions about things they've got no real idea about. But it's great for us because in our training with our franchisees, you obviously use it in your business. I show for around 15 minutes ChatGPT to people, and maybe 15 seen it in the room out of 100. Then you see the other ones, the older people especially, just go, "What's this thing?" And then we're training him to use it for your customer newsletter, emails, debt collection, all that sort of stuff. So our franchisees are starting to use it more and more in their business, which is great to try and make them more efficient. Because the last thing they want to do is come home and write emails or draft a newsletter to send to their customers and stuff like that. So it's been great from that, just help them free them up. And the guys who mightn't have been so inclined to write, because it can be, I'm not a strong writer myself. Hey, I need to promote a $99 malt special. Draft me an email template to send to my previous customers. Don't make it overly salesy. Gives you a template, copy and paste and send it on while you're going. Our franchisees can generate some more work from that. So it's been a great tool from that. But yeah, your profession will be will be fairly safe for a very long time.
Yeah, next minute they come up with robots.
The robots are struggling. I've been watching that quite closely, Luke, and like you see Boston Dynamics and see where it's at in the Tesla robot and stuff, and it's still so expensive and it's a long way away. But the problem with AI at the moment is just, I think Musk was saying we shouldn't allow it to write code. Should not be allowed to write it code. And now if you can go to ChatGPT and say, create me a WordPress plugin for my site to calculate lawn growth or whatever it is, it'll give you the code and you can copy and paste it and that plugin will literally work. So might be already too late, I reckon.
Yeah, but the only other thing as well, like some of the hardest people to find are software engineers.
Yes, we struggle. We pay a fortune for good software engineers, but yeah,
I know. We got a project that we're working on, which I can't talk about too much. I've referred to it very briefly in the podcast, but we had a plan of attack basically, and then we had a small hiccup. But the problem is that when you have a small hiccup on a brand new idea that you were creating, it takes a lot of work to remake things. And I was like, the money needed to go and start again, because you got to hire somebody from Pakistan or those areas, because people, Australian software engineers are insanely expensive, right? And the hours needed. So I'm like, man, I look forward to and embrace our robotic overlords whenever that happens. You know,
if franchisees are listening, they'll be laughing at what you were just saying, because we have this Jim's Jobs program, which is our software CRM, like service mate type thing. And Jim has spent a fortune. I'm talking millions and millions of dollars trying to rewrite it and do all these sorts of things. And he's adamant he's never going to go with the off the shelf thing. He wants it all custom done. And he spent most of the money in Jim's. Actually, half of our staff are software. So that should give you an idea about how important it is or how driven he is with that. But it's so expensive. You know, he spends probably $7 million a year plus on software development and IT. So we definitely know how expensive it is, and software developers at the moment, engineers, can write their own tickets. But yes, AI being able to write code, you've got software engineers now who can use that as a tool to help them. Hopefully it does bring the costs down. But yeah, it's not an easy thing. It's frustrating when you have an idea and you want to get it out, which Jim does with he goes, I want it to do this, this, and this, and then not realizing that idea is going to cost him maybe $3 million or $2 million until too late is a bit of a problem.
$7 million, that's 411,000 Zinger boxes. So I think he could reinvest that money somewhere else.
He's beat a few people.
I put that in the calculator.
Well done.
There's no way of doing that. But $7 million. Oh man, that's well. I mean, there's a few times we talked about some big money stuff on the podcast. Like we had Matt Oliver, the head groundskeeper at Suncorp Stadium, on, and it was over $1 million to replace the lawn after the Ed Sheeran concert. And Ed Sheeran pays for that. And they're going to make so much money from the concert that they're like, yeah, we'll pay you $1 million just to replace some turf. And he said it was well into seven figures. So I don't know. When I'm saying $1 million, it might have been 2 or 3. I don't know, man. It's anyways. I did it again as well. Like not that long after, they had another concert, and I'm following him on socials, and I'm like, what the hell? Anyway, so yeah, a lot of money on software. I personally feel like the AI stuff is it has to be harnessed so that you don't have runaway, what's the
the AGI sort of stuff like so at the moment where it's basically generative AI. So it's generative AI. It's sucked up read all the web pages and stuff, and it's whether we want to call it plagiarizing or not, but it's predictive. It's working on what's the next based on what this person's typing or asking me, what's the next thing in the sentence sort of thing. But then you got the AGI, which is the one where it becomes self-aware and stuff, which is the whole Skynet sort of thing, and that's the one that Musk and all of them are worried about. And that's the thing. Like OpenAI was originally supposed to be, which Musk obviously started with a few others, was supposed to be so it's transparent and that, and then they realized, we can actually make a lot of money out of this, and then it's changed the whole thing, and Microsoft is now involved and stuff like that. But the annoying thing is, like, someone's going to reach it first, and is it going to be Russia? Is going to be everyone's working on it, right? So if you put restrictions in the USA, for example, do you think there's restrictions in China or Russia? There's not. So it's sort of an arms race at the moment to, I guess, get to the AGI or whatever that's going to be. But yeah, it's an interesting time, and I feel really sorry for a lot of. I don't know if you spend a lot of time with. Obviously, your website, there's SEO and there's niche sites and stuff, like people who might do review sites and things like that, and because there's so much, and that was all like review a mower, write about it, all that sort of stuff, make money from affiliate revenue, and now people can just spit out a review with ChatGPT, and it's just it's a bit of a mess at the moment as well. It's a huge mess.
So when is Jim starting Jim's AI?
I've actually registered the domain. So hopefully Jim doesn't listen. I have. Yeah, I registered the domain. It was 6 months ago. So I've got that one sitting there. But no, it'd be interesting to see how we use it in the business. Look, at the moment we just show franchisees how to use ChatGPT and how to all those writing tasks which they might not like doing, how to use that tool. And I think that's really cool from that point of view. But beyond that, how we use it with in our back end with our lead allocation and scheduling and stuff, I presume it's going to be coming into that in some way. I don't know I think our engineers will probably use it in some way at the moment to help them with their codes and stuff like that. But yeah, Jim's AI, who knows? I'm sure someone will come with that idea. Who knows what it will do? But yeah, I'm sure it's not too far on the horizon in some aspects.
Yeah, but you're right about using ChatGPT for things like, debt collection emails. I've definitely seen some people online who debt collection is not their forte.
Not many people like it.
It's kind of the message is kind of like, I'm a grown man with several chainsaws. I suggest you pay this. It's like maybe a little bit more tact might have potentially considerably helped you out. Just pray about it. You know what
It's
I
a great
mean?
example.
Like,
I had a franchisee say exactly
reconsider.
the same thing to me. They wrote a nasty email before sending it. They copy and paste and put in ChatGPT and said, analyze this email. Please make it a bit more friendly. They get that response and then they send that back to the customer. So that's, yeah.
I wonder how much more hanky panky some bad husbands would get if they just communicated through ChatGPT.
Yeah, love coach.
I know that's so off topic, but I've just clicked. It sounds like I needed that help with my sex life.
I'm sure it can be a love
but
coach
I'm
or
just
write you
wondering.
a love poem or something you can send across.
Exactly. Sure. Yes. Instead of like, hello, chunk of meat, you know, we can rewrite that. We've got better ways to do that.
Yeah, give me 10 alternatives to that.
That's funny. I've opened up a whole world of possibilities now, you know, and I guess that's, you know what, now I've just thought that all the dickheads who would manipulate it, and
look,
again,
AI girlfriends, all that sort of stuff. It's crazy. So people are making like serious money off AI girlfriends and just running AI Instagram accounts with influencer models, and it's just nuts.
Getting back onto gym stuff, I saw you put a video out on your LinkedIn. Was it on your LinkedIn? I saw a video anyway from gyms or something. I think I follow you on Insta or something as well. But you interviewed a guy, I think he was your cameraman, who then became a gym, or he helped you. And he basically said you were the worst person he ever met in his life, and he wanted to get away from you, and here you are interviewing him again. No, he wanted to change, and it was like watching all these people do gyms, and he was like, oh, why did I do it? I was wondering, like, have you ever thought about, like, damn, I should just, all this marketing stuff is too much. I'm just going to go most.
A few times. It's probably easier. I wouldn't say it'd be easier, but like it'd be a good change for me. But look, it's crossed my mind. But the one thing that sticks in my head with the gym is he always says you got to do something you're passionate about. I'm not passionate about gardening. You know, maybe I might be one day, but I'm not. So I don't want to go into something just for purely the money. I love what I do. So everything from 2019, all the gyms group, gyms mowing, all that assets and all that stuff you see online, that's my stuff. Like I feel real attached to it. So it's very hard to give my baby away. I've been really lucky to. I've had four really good guys over the journey. Greg's one of them, one of my full-time content creators. I had Jake and Ben, and I had a guy called Charles who's with me now. He's really, really good. But Greg won't mind me saying this, but he's got some mental health challenges. So he was sitting in front of a computer all day editing. And that's not the best for your mental health if you've got mental health challenges. So we'd go out, I'd try and go out 1 or 2 days a week to film, you know, just to get him out. We'd go out of the office and then come back and be editing for 3 or 4 days. And it's pretty hard to work for me, not regards I'm a bad boss, but I always want content. I want bang, 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 bang. And he's just editing all day. And he actually enjoyed doing that stuff before coming to work for me. So that was his hobby, and that he didn't enjoy it anymore. So then going out all the day in the field, we're interviewing franchisees and they're talking about how much they made and how much happier they are and stuff. And he had a few mental health issues that he needs to sort out. And then he told me one time, and I said, mate, that's perfectly fine. That's such a good credit for us that you've seen all the stuff internally and you're going to go do it. So I said, the only agreement is you need to come and when I want to do content with you, you got to agree to it and stuff like that. But he's so much happier. He's way healthier. Really great guy, Greg. He's an awesome dude. Makes far more money than what Jim was paying him. And it was just a great decision for him. And it's a really good story for us, and it's something we use a bit. But he's just so much happier. He's just mental health's far better. He hasn't had any issues or anything like that. He just loves what he does, and he never had an inkling to do gardening before. Like I don't think he was a big gardener before coming to gyms, but I've watched him in the field and stuff. He's really, really good, and he just loves it. The physical workout for him every day has been done wonders for him, and he's been really, really good since he's been doing it.
Vitamin D, fresh air,
lost a lot of weight too.
All the stuff we talked about, the visual satisfaction. Yeah, I mean it's all that beneficial stuff. So how many people out of the? So you said 2,300 franchises.
That's just in mowing. Yeah.
So how many? Yeah. That's just in mowing. Okay, and you're over everything. So there's probably 2,400 gyms beauties by now.
There's 8 now actually, which is surprising. So he surprised me, Ming. He's done really well.
That's only what 2 months.
Yeah, he's done really well. As I said, he's just a person that runs it, and the ladies in the division are doing a really good job, and they've got a really good niche market. You know, some have got their own home salons in their home, or they go to like aged care residential areas, and once they start doing a good job, word of
That's
mouth.
yeah, true. Well, so how many in all the divisions up? Would it be 3,000?
5,300 franchisees we have.
Yeah.
We've got 300 and a bit over 20 now
Gee
in
whiz.
New Zealand, and we have around 40 in Canada.
So you've been there for 4 years. You interview a lot of these people. How many do you think you've talked to in terms? Obviously, there'll be a lot that you would have brushed past, but like people you've had a good enough conversation with about how things
Probably
are
more
going.
than 500. On Jim's podcast, I've done around 200 episodes directly with franchisees, and I meet a lot of franchisees, at our various events and in training as well. So I probably met around 500 or 400, probably 500-ish, I would say. I've spoken to like for more than 5 or 10 minutes. So I've got a pretty good sense of it. I've been in gyms for 12 years in a variety of roles as well. So I know pretty much every franchisor in the group pretty well. But yeah, franchisees, I'm lucky as well. I get to go and film with franchisees in the field. So I might spend a day with a franchisee in the car and stuff like that. So I get to hear their problems as well, and I relay them back to Jim in a way. But yeah, I've met a lot of people.
Yeah. You're the political filter that Jim wouldn't have been. You're the,
I try to be the conscience. I try to be the conscience in the background and try and influence where I can.
Yeah. Joe, when I look at you, I think Jiminy Cricket. That's what goes from. No, where I was getting at this, actually, while you're saying this, do you ever come do you go all the way to Darwin, or do you ever
Great
travel?
Question. Yeah, look, I did a big trip in New Zealand last year. So I went 7 days. We filmed 7 days in Auckland, Christchurch, and Wellington with franchisees. Done a whole bunch of content, the same we did for Australia. I've actually started Gym's Group New Zealand accounts just to build up and make them, because they're always like, you don't do that for New Zealand to do anything for us. We always used to get that. So, all right, I'm going to treat you the same. So come over, filmed a lot of content. The plan is to do New South Wales and Brisbane soon, to go up and film with franchisees there. Obviously, even though you're filming with franchisees here, still having that terrain or those gardens that are in Brisbane or in New South Wales and stuff, people like to do it. And they like to see, if you're coming up there, it's more of a political thing as well. Like if you're making the effort to come to New Zealand and Jim's paying for you or Jim's sending you there as well, they like that. It's more of a goodwill thing as well. So they like doing that and they see that value. So, Darwin would be great. We've got a few franchisees up there who, and it's growing. We've got a cleaning guy. We've got some dog wash up there, test and tag and stuff. But New South Wales will probably be next with Brisbane. And I've got a plan to do a digital show called Jim's Local Heroes. So basically where we had a mowing franchisee help out the Salvation Army lady on the Saturday. And I thought, why can't we do this but bring in multiple services to help someone? We don't need a TV show to do that. We can do that ourselves. So we're going to do that hopefully soon, and that will be done once every couple of months in each state. So New South Wales might have a volunteer or a nurse or whoever we pick, and we get 6 services in there. Might give them free gardening for a year, free laundry services for a year, and do some stuff around the home and those sorts of things. So we're trying to do our own sort of PR, goodwill sort of stuff, because the stuff that, this is a bit of a tangent, but I love the stuff that Tim the Lawnmower Man and Nathan does, but I've never really wanted to do it because as soon as we did it, you copied them, right? And that's the sort of thing
it's the market saturated there too.
So I didn't want to really do that for that reason, because I knew that's exactly what would happen. We're sort of a bit too late to it. But our sort of version of that will be going to someone's house and bringing in multiple services to do a lot of free stuff, and that's what we're going to sort of do. But yeah, interstate, it's just we're sort of lucky. We travel pretty light. It's just me and Charles, who's my videographer guy, and we're pretty light with our things, whereas most production companies, you need to have a grip and 2 cameras and a script and all this overkill stuff. We just rock up with a couple of cameras on the gimbal, mic up, film as much as we can, and then it's up to us to edit it, or Charles to edit it, to make it interesting enough. So that's what we try and do.
Well, that's what people on the internet these days, I think the more polished the content is to us, I mean, it depends what you mean by polished, but the more polished the content is, the less trustworthy it
100%.
becomes, I believe. There's a middle ground where it's like, this is rubbish. Like, you put no effort into, you film this on a potato and your editor was drunk, right? Like this is not good content for your business. But then there gets the point where it's like, like you said, scripts. I mean,
no using.
Yeah, and people will still be listening to this right now. It's well over an hour, and people will be like, "Oh, this is interesting." And it's like, we've never talked other than a few messages back and forth when we were organising Jim to come on, and then obviously now it's like not. But it's real, probably. Anyways, but I do feel like
was just going to
So
say,
you
spot
go.
about you said about the video. At TikTok's early days, all right, I literally just got a phone in front of Jim and stood Jim against the sign and said, "What are our fees?" And then he just goes on his big tangent, 300,000 views. And took me 1 minute to do. I didn't do any editing, just use the auto caption function. And people overthink content. And I
Yeah.
love seeing the progression of content. Someone like Tim Lawman is fantastic. You see his content from when he was early to now. Really, really well done. But sometimes I just think that raw, this word authentic gets thrown around a lot, but that raw thing where people, know that you're not overly trying too hard, and that's a real inside look into your business. That's why I love live streams. I think live streams are fantastic because you can't hide on a live stream. But I think it's just the way to go. And the way AI is going, because there's so much, it's going to be easier for people to produce content at scale with like tools like Opus Clip and stuff like that. It's going to go so far one way where there's just saturation of content and content all the time. To stand out in that market, you're going to have to really, try something a bit different or try and go the other way and be a bit more raw and be a bit more genuine and less produce.
Here's something that only you and I are going to know about. We're going to lose the entire audience here. But Opus Clip, I have a love-hate relationship with it because it's like it's almost now. When it was new, it was like, this is so cool, but now it's cliche, and only you and I will notice it out of just about anybody using this listen to this podcast. But that's an Opus Clip.
Absolutely,
Like,
absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like, it's hard. You can modify some things, but I'm just like, and now whenever I see Opus Clip, including my own content, I'm like, we need real. Give me some real edited content. I kind of devalue, but obviously 99% of the population. So Opus Clip, people, is an AI that goes through a video and will take clips from it and kind of auto edit it. You need to put in a little bit more work sometimes, but it does a really good job of it. But there's certain styles and themes and stuff that sort of give it away. And it kind of feels to me sometimes, even though we use it, like it's this person's cutting corners, which they are, but they're also smart. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on Opus
Absolutely,
Clip.
yeah, no, it's a great tool. We actually recommend to our franchisors to use it, and some use it to cut up their interviews we do with them, and they use it for their marketing material. And they would never do that otherwise, or they might want to pay an editor like on Upwork or something. So it's been good from that point of view.
Mate. So all of that was leading me to a certain question. You've interviewed maybe 200 people on the podcast. You've seen 500 plus where you've had a proper conversation with them about how their gym's experience is going. I'm going to ask you who your favorite child is here in a certain way, but who is the most impressive gym? Doesn't necessarily mean in the vanity numbers metrics, but somebody who either turned their situation around in such a dramatic way, you're like, wow, well done, or somebody who was doing such a great job of serving people, you were impressed, but who left literally an impression on you in the truest sense of that word?
It's a really good question.
Or the biggest.
Really good question. There's a couple of answers. Like through our training, I meet a lot of people because at the start of their journey, they're really enthusiastic, and you always meet some people with some fantastic attitudes. And then you check in with them later and they are successful and you go, wow. But there's a lot of people in gyms who I probably don't know about who are under the radar who have massive businesses. But there's one guy called Conor McGreevy. He's 25. He flies under the radar, but he's not a big talker or promoter of himself and stuff. But he's got a really great business. He's 25 years old. I think he was 22 or 21 when he joined gyms, and he's had like 5 or 4 staff. And I met him in person a couple of times. He came to our Build Your Business Day with Mike Andes and stuff. And I just spoke to him then. Just such a really humble, under the radar business bloke who worked it out early that he wanted to work for himself from the age of 21 or 20, and did that. Goes under the radar, and he's managing multiple people. He's got turns over $500,000 a year, whatever, for a 25-year-old. And he's just a really, really mature guy, and he's just a really under the radar type of person. There's a couple more. Mitch Millington I met a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. He's got 8 staff. Just a bloody good operator in how he works his business. He has a couple of blokes with autism who work for him, and he's trained up, and they're in his business. And a lot of our people don't know this, but a lot of our franchisees employ a lot of people in independence do this as well. But they employ people who are a bit neurodiverse or might be on the spectrum in some way, and that happens a lot of our franchisees. And he's got 2 of those guys, and just how he coaches them and how he looked after them and stuff, I thought was really, really impressive. And look, Dan's a very controversial figure in our thing. But I know Dan personally. I've had him on my mental health podcast, and he had a pretty tough upbringing with his father, who had bipolar disorder. And I had a mum with bipolar disorder, so I can relate to him. And the stuff that he went through as a young man, you can go one or two ways. You can either use it as an excuse and be the victim, and you'll end up in jail and blame the world and whatever, which statistically shows you're more likely to do that. Or you can say, I'm going to use this as motivation. I'm going to put my head down, knuckle down and work my ass off and go this way and be real successful and use it as fuel. Now, that's what he did. When you hear his story fully, and I know his story fully, you think, geez, you should have been in jail, or you should have been a statistic. You should not have actually had a successful business. And he does. And, I think people like that is great. And they're probably the three standout ones. So I met Dan from the start of his journey. He pushed himself to come on the Ask Jim live show with me and Jim. I'm like, who's this guy? He's a 26-year-old and stuff. And he's pumping up and talking about himself and his numbers and stuff. And he talks in terms of sales because he comes from McDonald's and Oakland, and he does that. Now he's a franchisor and he's got a massive region, and he can rub the people the wrong way because he just, obviously, he's a bit controversial now, even in Jim's Mowing, right? If people from Jim's Mowing hearing this, they might love him or they might not like him as much. But once you know his full story and just where, having that situation and to just come and still be really successful is really good to hear. And, I've mentioned only three there. There's heaps of franchisees I've met that I can't probably remember on the spot. But we have even a couple. I met a guy today, Jim's dog wash franchisee I spoke about before. I only spoke for 10 minutes because he was dropped out of school at year 9, told he's a loser, all these sorts of things, and never been really given much of a go. And, he got sacked during COVID and all that sort of stuff and ended up doing Jim's dog washing because of his anxiety. He's just in that way. He couldn't do the grooming side of it. So you think, how's he going to make successful? But he just does dog washing full time. And he runs, and he's just saying, I would never have thought I could have run a successful business because I was told I was no good, I was a loser. And people telling someone that's a disgrace in the first place. But now he's got the confidence and he's been doing his own business for 3 years, and who would have thought he's capable of doing that? And that's what he's saying to me today. And you meet people like that, and there's just so many good stories. Obviously, in self-made starters and independents as well. There's a lot of people like that. But these are the ones that stand out. There's so many over the years I've met. I've left out a couple, but there's a lot of good stories like that within gyms, within independents, just in general.
So who's the worst one that you've ever met? No, that's a joke. Don't answer.
Look, I didn't get along with, and I might think, I might hold my tongue a bit sometimes. But look, I think most look, I honestly get to talk to probably the franchisees who want to speak about their story and stuff like that, and they're probably in a really good place. The ones that the franchisees that really we struggle with anyway at head office, this has been honest about it, is the ones who don't take. They're always the victim. It's never their fault from a customer, or I blame my person for this or my franchisor. And they're always the most difficult ones. And in most regions, you have really great franchisees. Like 90% of the franchisees are great. You might have one person who's like that, and the us against the man mentality, or Jim's does nothing for me, or this and that. Those sorts of people are the ones I come across. And look, we have some Facebook groups and stuff with all the franchisees in them, and you might see occasionally, something negative about gyms and stuff. But it's like, they've both been a franchisee for 10 years. Like, I'm sure you're paying your house off, or you might have an investment property, large part of it due to gyms, and we can always be better. But I find ungrateful people very hard to deal with. So if someone's been in gyms for 15 years and and this was a guy who might have been a minimum wage worker before coming to gyms, and they're earning $300,000 or $400,000 a year with investment properties and stuff, and they hate gyms guts, which a lot of them do. I find it very hard because I sort of think, be a bit circumspect. You might not like someone personally, but just be respectful and grateful to what you have done. It's not, and a lot of people think, I've done this, it's all on me. Well, maybe in some regard, but ungratefulness in general, I think, is really annoying. And when you meet people who are like that, but they're still with us 15, 20 years and 10 years, it can be quite annoying. And I have met some people like that. But overall, most of the people I come across in gyms are really good-hearted people, and just like you and yourself, you got a young family. They've got families. They're just trying to make a better life for themselves and show their kids hard work that pays off, and not have to worry about money and things like that, and do something they like and not deal with all the corporate BS that I probably deal with in an environment. So I'm pretty lucky in what I do. Yeah.
It reminds me, I talked very briefly about this with Jim, but there was a long period of time where I was volunteering at a drug rehab, and it was a very big drug rehab, like somewhere between 80 and 120 people in the rehab. and so a lot of staff volunteers. So I would volunteer a couple of nights a week in a very unimportant role in a sense. Not unimportant, but because every role is important in a place like that. But no, I wasn't a key figure. My wife, on the other hand, she worked there full time and had a leadership position in what she would do specifically is they would a big part of their thing was that the recovering addict would pay their own way through. And one of the ways they do it at the beginning is they would work and they would earn their own money. And then, that's the whole thing. So they had to get these guys who are addicts into some form of work, which obviously is very difficult. And one of the things that happens is you have safety nightmares. And so my wife was the safety manager of a drug rehab with at maximum 140 people, men. There was only men at the time. They got men and women now, years later. But 140 addicts who grew up and their mum was a prostitute or their dad was a dealer or part of the bikies. Obviously, there's functioning addicts in there as well, but they're not the ones that were causing my wife any issues. The safety aspect has not been drilled into these people. So anyway, that was her role in making sure that people actually wore safety boots and knew what processes were so they could actually be successful in a role. So we were really heavily invested mentally in this place. I felt very similar both hearing you then and talking to Jim about how you have a system and the system works, and yet, one side is you still have people who are ungrateful because of the people who are in a rehab will tell you the truth and you don't like the truth, but you kind of know you need to hear it. But the other thing, which is more where I wanted to go with this, is I remember early on hearing people who would complain about the system after they left and didn't fulfill it to its full capacity. And this drug rehab, which is called Shalom House, the leader of that place is a former former drug addict for 20-something years in prison, drugs, guns, this, that, everything. Crazy story. Turned his life around, and then because he had turned his life around, naturally, other drug addicts who knew him because of the work circles he was in came to him and like, how do you do this? So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 30, 40, 100 people over a 10-year period. It grew, 8-year period, whatever it was. So he's running this organization that he never intended to start. But, so what I'm getting at is this place was run by former drug addicts who are not corporate people, and they drop the ball and they make mistakes. And then they hire someone like my wife who has never, even seen a drug until she went in there, and they would like do drug busts on people. And he'd walk, Peter Linda James, the guy who runs this, would walk around the office to all the office ladies who are like the cleanest people you've ever met in your life and be like, this is what crystal meth looks like. Everybody have a look. And anyway, so we were part of that. And I remember how frustrated it was to be, like, say, a Facebook friend with a guy who was in the program who, was cutting corners and doing things, left the program and then badmouths the program. And it's like, that's not everybody in the outside world has no reason to doubt you because they feel like what you're saying is true. But deep down, it's not honest. And everybody who was at the program knows that that's not the full story. But someone will drop a ball and we'll just highlight that, so there'll be a genuine ball drop in. So say with gyms, some people drop balls all the time. Like this, what organization doesn't? And then all of a sudden so anyways, that was a long rambling story, but I'm guessing that you feel that way sometimes as well with some of the stories that you might have, because is it the gym system? I'm sure there's times that people have dropped the ball, but I'm sure there's a lot of stories of people who failed and then blamed the system, but really they weren't.
Well, see in the comments, like I had 2 mates who went into gyms and went bankrupt, right? And we got Jim to do a response video. And it's like, well, if you did that, like, I highly doubt the story is true. But if you did do that, like, you would have to be, really not suited for business. And look, to be honest with you, that's a failing in us because our franchisor should not be selling to someone who's going to be in that position. And to be fair, like, if there's one thing I could probably improve on is, like, we do is quality selection. there's a whole thing in franchising is like, what's the selection criteria? And used to people say, just give me, you got that, you're a franchisee. But we try and be really strict, and we try and weed them out in training. But and we come down on franchisors sometimes who do send through a prospect, which is completely not a thing. But yeah, it's very rarely someone fails because of the system. I reckon it's maybe happened. I've noticed it's happened a couple of times where the franchisor's been really bad, or the division they joined was a newer division and had no money put into marketing. Yeah, that's us. And we try and correct it. We try and move people into other divisions where we know there's work and stuff like that. But most of the time, it's the people who fail, who have that victim mindset. And the reason why I talk about it openly, Luke, is because I used to be one. So I grew up in foster homes. Mum always in a psychiatric ward. I was ward of the state for a lot of the time growing up. I was always like, angry at this person, why I can't do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And it wasn't until my mid-20s where I started going, no, the world doesn't owe me anything. If I'm going to change and get anywhere in life, I'm going to start being positive and taking ownership myself. And when I did that, things improved. Like I'm the CEO of Australia's largest franchise. I didn't even do a marketing degree at 35, or was it 33 or whatever, right? And I put a lot of it down to just a good attitude and being really grateful to the place I'm at and giving 100%. And when people have that mindset to be grateful to the opportunity to run their own business, give 100%, take feedback. Like Jim's not easy to work with. I get a lot of stuff all the time that I just don't like to hear, and it's very hard. But when you take on that feedback on board and you try and get better and better and better, and you do, and you try and improve every day, your life will be far better. You'll be in a far better position in 1 year's time. But when you start taking ownership and stop blaming other people, and everything's your fault. Like, it's a really good saying I heard recently. And like everything in your life, there may be some things different to this, but no matter what you do in your life, everything is your fault. Like you might, for example, be in a car crash and go, that's the other person's fault, but you decided to drive that way to work that sort of speed. So when you start looking at things like everything is your fault and is in your control, you can start fixing a lot of things. And that's why with franchisees, the system's a system. You've had thousands of people over the years come through it. Thousands of really successful people come into the system, leave gyms, go and build multi-million-dollar businesses doing other things, buying nurseries or whatever. It's a tried and tested thing. And so for me, yeah, even now, I know it works if people follow it. But that's the most important part. Being in business is like, how can you do things better? And everything in your business is your responsibility ultimately. You might want to blame certain things occasionally, and it might not be your fault. But it's about what you can do to control yourself and how you respond to things. And the franchisees who come with that mindset from day one just absolutely smash it, and they build really great businesses. And the ones who don't, our system will carry them, absolutely. And they might hate Jim's guts and Jim this and Jim that after 15 years. And I met a few of those occasionally, grizzled veterans sometimes. And I understand it. Like, you've been there for 15 years. Jim's not going to ring you up and say, oh, thank you so much for hanging around, or send you a gold watch. It's not the way it works. That's just not the way he values things, right? But you do get that mentality sometimes, and that's probably very frustrating. But the reason why I speak about it really openly is because, I was one of those sort of people, and I just know how powerful and how strong it is if you just have to reframe everything to not think the world owes you anything, or the world's against you, anyone's against you, because they're not. You can achieve a lot. So that's sort of a very philosophical sort of response to your question, but that's sort of where I come of it.
Yeah. Because the thing about responsibility, isn't it? And a lot of people who like online content and podcasts would have heard of people like your Jordan Petersons out there who will talk about taking responsibility. I'm not sure if fault is the right word, because you say everything's your fault, but it's not. I get what the heart of what you're trying to say, because there'll be people who might have, for example, been born without a limb or something like that. And so there are circumstances where you couldn't have possibly had anything to do with it. But obviously it's like, it doesn't matter. So here's another story you probably don't know about me, but I used to be a swimmer, and I used to swim with a lot of people who had very significant disabilities. And there's a guy named Grant Patterson. His nickname is Scooter. So if you write Grant Scooter Patterson on the internet, I think he's been to 3 Olympics. He comes up to about my hip. He has a great sense of humor, a great attitude, one of the best sort of motivational people you'll ever have in your life. When he swims 100 meters at nationals, he comes last on a timing board, but he finishes and everybody claps him. I remember back in 2009, we were friends hanging out, and he told me about one day he wanted to write a book called My Life at Cock Height. And that's the sort of
Great title, yeah.
joke he would have about his, he just wanted to, that's the sort of, and positive attitude. He went on, do you know Mark
Yes,
Boris?
you get the apprentice and stuff.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. So he has a podcast, and about a year ago, I think Grant went on that podcast, and I was like, man, that's such a great job, Mark, for finding a diamond in the rough. Because he's been to Paralympics, but not many people know who Paralympians are. Blah blah blah. And anyways, I have a story. There's another guy named Ahmed Kelly, and another Paralympian. So I used to swim with these guys. These were way out of my league in terms of swimming capabilities, and in certain sense, no. But it's in the sense of that they were representing the country and against other people with a disability, similar level of disabilities. They were just world-class athletes. Ahmed and Grant both love footy. Ahmed has no arms past his elbows and no knees past probably halfway down his shin. So he walks, so no legs, so probably halfway down his shin. So he walks on 2 prosthetic limbs and just has, basically to his elbows. 3 of us on a regular basis back 2009, 10, 11, when we used to swim a lot at nationals and stuff from completely different states. I'm WA, Grant's up in Cairns, and Ahmed was down in Victoria. We'd kick a footy at the front of swimming, and people walking in and out, and they had their minds blown at how straight Ahmed Kelly could kick. He could hit Grant Patterson on the chest from about 20 meters away, and that's not a very big chest to aim for, I'll tell you what. And then they'd kick the ball to me, and I'd have so much pressure. As the man with 4 functioning limbs and who can stand up without needing a scooter, I'm just like, man, I've got to hit the target here, But these are 2 guys who completely, their attitude was, yes, this has happened. This is how we were born. Both of them were born that way. Ahmed actually was born with his feet backwards, and so they just had to cut him off. But they were born that way. But the attitude, man, and they have this lasting friendship. After I finished swimming, I didn't really, continue talking to them too much. Random message every now and then, once every couple of years. But those 2, very, very close. And I mean, they're such a rare person, but it puts it into context where you go, you put that person next to the Whinger, and they got nothing now. It's like, oh, and it's funny how you will bring just somebody like that kicking a footy. You just walk past it, your day has changed because you're like, I don't really have problems, do I? And he's doing a pretty good job of that, and that's pretty flippin' impressive how straight.
Absolutely,
they can kick,
and I really consciously try and, if I'm being negative during the day, talking bad about whatever, I try and pull myself out of it because of that. And it does get frustrating. You talk to people, earning 300, 400 grand a year, and you're like, what are you complaining about? You're multi-millionaire, whatever you are, and you're complaining about this little problem, which is not a problem, And sometimes the reason why they are like that, because no one calls them out on it, right? So if you call these people out on that sort of stuff, it puts them in their place and check. But yeah, it's a hard work. You got to try and every day try and be grateful. And people say, "Oh, I'm grateful for this," and then you get in the hole and you fall into that negative mindset. Especially working in an environment like mine, where you're working in an office and stuff like that. I think when you're out in the field, you got a bit more clear mind, and you can listen to podcasts and stuff to pull you back.
You get a bit grumpy.
You can get a bit grumpy, yes, I do. Yeah. I try and do, actually, I have a standing desk deliberately to try and do that. Get up. And I play racquetball with Jim every day, actually. So we try and get up and do something. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I play a lot of guitar, and there's a lot of guys online with no arms who play Eruption perfectly, which is their feet. They play guitar around with their feet with the pick.
I've seen those
amazing.
Videos.
And you think, they have maybe a little, their arms up to here, and they have this little prosthetic pick thing made for them, and they can play perfect stuff. And it's like so much more difficult than anything for what we do. And yeah, you're right. You're meeting those people and just constantly checking in and just pulling yourself out of this stupid gutter mindset sometimes of negativity, and be a bit grateful for your situation. But those people are fantastic, and yeah, very lucky to have people like that in the world who are so positive and a good example.
Can you do a rendition of Strawberry Kisses for
us?
The
guitar? No.
Song, so I just thought.
No, definitely.
Yeah. No, I know you play it 6 hours a day.
I used to do when I was younger. I used to play a lot, actually. All 80s metal stuff.
So, Pete, so it sounded like you admitted to playing.
No.
This is Grant Patterson, and this is Ahmed Kelly.
Yeah.
People who are watching, and so Grant is this nickname Scooter because he uses that scooter to get around. I haven't got a good picture of Ahmed together, but these guys, they're such a good story. There's Ahmed, but I need trying to get a picture of full body Ahmed, but anyways, people, I don't know if Ahmed's active on social, but Grant definitely is active on social media. So if you want some daily inspiration, and he does have a video of himself mowing his lawn. I should you keep talking about life, and I'm going to find a video of him mowing.
Well, I
a
wish
lawn.
I could make something where people just pull this game perspective every day. As I said, I deal with a lot of people, and just trying to give people perspective about how good they have it. I don't know how we do it, but it'd be something that would make the world a lot better place. Let's have a look at him doing this stuff here.
Now I'm just searching Google
Grant
now. It'll be somewhere.
Lawn mowing simulator comes up, which is
cool. People. Yeah, it's somewhere. There's somewhere on here. I hope something dodgy doesn't come up. That's.
Is it on his IG or something?
Right.
Or YouTube?
Yeah, it's definitely on his Facebook, but it's one of those things. How Facebook search is rubbish, and
his team coming up.
The Lawnmower Man came up. But look, there's a video of him. So he's got a right. I'll take this off the screen. How unprofessional, Luke. Oh, well, it's not scripted, is it? No, people jump on there and have a look because he's got a little ride on lawnmower that he jumps on. But the funniest thing is the whippersnipper, he's got to hold it, like if I go back, he's got to hold it like almost above his head. And
makes it work still.
So I don't know, maybe he's kind of the person that, I could contact some of the brands and be like, hey, brand, do you want to can we customize whippersnipper to get it smaller or something like that? But he's kind of the guy who, I don't know, I'm going to send him this. I'm going to be like, Grant, what do you want? Because I think he is proud of, and I haven't talked to him in probably a year or two or something, but my understanding is he's the guy who's proud of not having it customized.
Wants to be treated the same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He drives a Hilux, and yes, there's customizations on it, but he still drives a full Hilux, and he does this and he does that, and he lives life to the fullest. And so people jump on his, but you can't back to the mindset in life is it doesn't matter if it's gyms or anything else, but that victim mentality and not taking responsibility is not really going to get you.
Well, it seems to be rewarded now. Unfortunately, who's the biggest victim online and biggest sob story, and sometimes it might sound a bit harsh, but I have a mental health podcast, right? So I talk about growing up, with bipolar mum and interview people in that sort of experience, and there's sort of a bit of a rise of the mental health influencer, especially on LinkedIn and stuff, where they share they maybe been depressed once, whether it's true or not, and then all of a sudden they're selling programs to workplaces to train them on mental health and things like that, and it's just you see that and you sort of think, where we sort of heading with that sort of thing. And it sort of cheapens the whole mental health thing. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are very cynical to it and don't take it as seriously because there's just so much of that sort of stuff online, and it can seem quite fake as well.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I'm not a very, I'm like a pull your bootstraps, pull yourself up by your bootstraps sort of personality. And, it's not great if you're actually suffering. You actually need someone to lean on. It's got strengths and weaknesses. But I was watching a video yesterday that came up, and it was a lady, and she was talking about how when she became a mum, all the negatives that happened and how she had to deal with it. But it was over the top because it was my relationship with my husband suffered and this and that and blah, blah. And I was I got so suspicious. I couldn't finish the video because I was everything here is edited to pull at heartstrings. It's the same thing as a controversial video is going to go viral. She knows the heartstrings going to go viral. And I'm is this a legitimate story? Because there's some posts like that I wouldn't have turned off. But I felt like it wasn't legitimate. I felt like it was a chick who was manipulating the algorithm and maybe telling a true story, perhaps, or maybe, what's the word? Embellishing the facts a little bit, or putting some music on to make it so dramatic, so that all the mums that relate can click on and go, yeah, that was me too, and that blah, blah, blah. And then build your TikTok, build your Instagram, and then what happens is brands get deals. So even if that isn't a specific ad video, I can't get past the business incentive on a post like that, because maybe that's the cynical part of me, but
I agree. That's why I love long form podcasts, that sort of stuff. If I'm going to consume mental health content or some content, I like to listen to long form because there's not really much of a place to hide in. You can sense BS pretty quick in a long form interview. So if I do consume anything mental health, or like if I do some stuff like that, I always consume long form. I don't look at Instagram or LinkedIn and take the word of anyone doing that, because it's it's very not genuine. You're right, people just gaming the system a lot of the time to try and get some sort of influencer deal, or just doing it for followers, and it completely is non-genuine in any way. So that's why I love long form content, because it's just you get such a good sense of it. There's nowhere to hide, which is why podcasts are great, obviously, which is what you do with your people. You can just, there's so many nuggets of gold you're going to get out of there, and it's not scripted. Same with us. We do the same thing. That's why I don't edit any interviews with franchisees. If they say something bad about gyms, it stays in there. And the thing when they come to training, they say, I love it how it's really raw and genuine. So maybe they're not commenting on the audio quality being too good, but they appreciate the fact that if someone says something bad about gyms or whatever they had, we'll keep that in. And that's why I love this podcast platform. It's just such a good one. And that's why Joe Rogan and people like that do so well, is because that's what people want more of, because we've got such a short form attention and span online with the reels and stuff.
Yeah.
And people crave that longer form content with people who they really like, and they'll invest in time in them as well.
Especially while working and driving as well. This. So much dead time people actually have during the day where they're kind of busy, so they can't watch your Netflix. But I was actually, if anyone's from gyms who's listening to this, I've got a request. When Joel asks you to do an interview, right? Because he said that he leaves everything negative in. Can you just be lying and just way over the top and just see how far we can push that boundary? Can we go, hey, I'm going to tell all these horrible stories that are completely not true. Keep a straight face and just throw them in there and just see at what point Joel goes, oh man, I got to cut this.
They can try and test me. I'm pretty good with that. I'm not swearing. I'm right to keep it in. I'll remember this, and I'll hopefully, if someone might catches me off guard, I might not remember it, and it might be a bit interesting. But we'll see.
Yeah. See what sort of crazy stories you can slip in that are. I don't know if you come across Theo Von before, the comedian. I don't watch too much of his stuff, but I love a good Theo Von story when he's, when you get on a reel or something like that. I'd see more of his content from there. Occasionally listen to a podcast or so if he's got a good guest, but he's got some nuts stories, and I'm not entirely sure how many of them are actually completely true, because how many of them are he's under the influence of something other than the Holy Spirit. But somebody do that style. Somebody go in and just say some random stuff, and the joke will be between me and you. And
make it real for us. At Joel's expense, for us, so please do it. Anyone do it. Crazy the better. More controversial the better. We'll make it real. Make some good content out of it.
So talking about the controversy, do you know what's funny? Do you know I said let's start with this thing, and we haven't even talked about it, and we're getting close to 2 hours. It was the reel you told me that's your most popular reel on TikTok.
Yes.
Do you want to tell that
so basically, story? TikTok works, as you would know, with any reel. It tests it to a small audience, and then out of 100 people, if 90% of people watch that video to the end, it's going to push it and go viral. And a great way of doing that's actually telling a joke or telling a story. It's because people want to hear the hook or how the story resolves. And in our Ask Jim sessions, Jim has an encyclopedia of jokes. He's not a funny person by nature. Anyone will know that, but he's got like a computer almost in a way. He's got certain program files he will go to, and he's got a joke folder, which is fairly extensive. And he told this joke about
something's happened,
how God made New Zealand. And basically, it was saying all this politically incorrect stuff about people in Africa, the Japanese, and they got to the punchline and about Australia. But that, for whatever reason, he said a lot of politically incorrect stuff. If you watch it on the TikTok feed, it's one of the pinned videos, you'll see it. Cool. So, basically, we have the most viewed TikTok for us was 1.7 million views, which might not sound like a lot, but it you'd class as a viral video. And it's basically a Jim telling a joke about Australia, making fun of Australians, but with a New Zealand angle, and it's about how God made New Zealand. And I can't tell the joke that good. He's actually a really, really good joke teller. He's not an actually funny person, but he has an encyclopedia of jokes, which he's memorized. He's probably got around 20 in his arsenal. And he's actually a really good storyteller. And with the algorithm, it likes, how long people watch a video. So with the joke, it's great because you can watch it from the start to hear the punchline at the end. And and he said all these politically incorrect things. If you see the joke in our TikTok, it's the pin one. It says about Africa and, I'm going to make Africa have all this famine and Japan doing all this sort of stuff and all these wrong things. And then there's a punchline at the end. And for whatever reason, that video's got like 1.7 million views. And we've got a few in our feed where Jim tells jokes. So it's quite funny because people think Jim's a bit of a robot sometimes and he can come off that way. But he will surprise you. And that Ask Jim show that we've been doing for 5 years. Oh, here's a claim to fame for you. The Ask Jim Facebook Live show is the longest running franchising live stream show in Australia, which is the only one that's probably been ever done. But we're still doing that after 5 years. And we get a lot of good gold clips from that. And Jim says some pretty crazy stuff. He doesn't swear, but he's called me he sweared a couple of times and called me a wanker and a bastard and stuff. So, you never know.
Seriously? Or joking?
Yeah, that's it. I think sort of half jokingly and stuff. And back in my looser days, I was always going overseas, getting up to mischief, and he'd call me a man whore and all these sorts of things as well. So, it was sort of, that Ask Jim sort of stuff's been good to sort of humanise him as well. But comes out with some funny stuff, and every time we do it, there's always something different. And a lot of our TikTok strategies, actually, we just use those Ask Jim clips where if someone from the audience asks him a question, and I don't know what he's going to say. He said some outrageous stuff. Hopefully, if someone tries to cancel him in a few years, they could go back and probably find all they need to from there. But that's sort of a half-assed story about the joke. But if you want to see it, head to the Jim's Group profile and you'll see it as the first one.
I think I found the title of this podcast. It's going to be, how do I pronounce your last name? Kleber?
Kleber, yeah.
I got it right. I thought I was going to get it wrong. The title's going to be Jim Kleber, CMO of Jim's. So Joel Kleber, CMO of Jim's Group, is a man whore, and Jim Penman wears a size 8 women's shirt.
Hey, that's click-worthy, mate. That's very clickbait title, but it's true.
You reckon you're going to work?
Yeah, it'll work.
Never do that, but it is.
Jim wears a pink shirt. There you go. Jim wears pink women's shirt. Yeah.
With Jim Penman wears pink women's shirts. That's the thing. I mean, we have there'll be receipts somewhere.
I don't have the receipts. I have to get reimbursed because I bought it with my own card, so I've got the receipt for that one.
Mate, the whole $8 from Kmart. Oh man,
I had to get it reimbursed. I'm not a charity with Jim, so I've got to get it back. He'd be charging me.
My guess is that he's a stiff negotiator too. He's not. He wouldn't let a couple of dollars slip through without knowing exactly where it was going. Am I right there?
Very true. He sees it as a game. Business is a game to Jim. So.
Yeah. All right. See, that's the thing. I mean, I'm the opposite. Not the opposite. Not in the extreme angle, but I'm kind of like, I'll pay somebody a lot of money and then have high expectations. Because I hated when people negotiated and haggled with me. So if you're going to charge beyond my budget, we're not working together, right? But if it's within my budget and you perform really well, okay, we'll do it, right? But you better perform really well. Like you're setting your expectations high, because negotiation for me is just, especially small business. Like I'm too empathetic to. Is sympathetic? Can't remember, but I'm too caught up in remembering what it was like being haggled and you need the money. Anyways, I got one more question for you. We're going to, even though we said that I'm not even sure if Jim's competition, we're going to use and abuse the competition here as independents. And I want you to tell us, not use and abuse, what's the word? Take advantage of your knowledge. What business lessons have you learned at Jim's? Marketing stuff, financial stuff, just talking to people. What business lessons have you learned at Jim's that you think could be helpful or the most helpful for anybody else who's an independent in the industry?
Look, just some couple of basic things that I hear all the time from Jim is like, he just don't give up. Like it sounds really simple, but don't give up. And there's been a lot of really tough times with franchisees and with his story and stuff. And he's had a lot of interesting stuff happen, like pretty tough stuff happen, and just don't give up. And that's best bit of business advice. And then the other one, which you would have said in your podcast, is look at what you're doing every day and how you can do it 1% better. Ask yourself, is the best way I'm doing this? Can I do it better? And sometimes, you get the thing, I'm going pretty good. I don't need to improve anything, right? So, but he's the opposite. So it's how can we do what we're doing, but better? Even though, like, let's say we had 143 new franchisees in training because of the record for Jim's Group. You think we'd be happy and go, yeah, Joel, well done on that? So, nah, not happy. How can I get to 150, or how can I move training every 2 weeks? It's never be satisfied with what you're doing, but yet always looking how to improve. And then, don't give up. Things are hard, and then that resilience you gain from not giving up will make you a better person moving forward. And those who give up will never succeed. And that's what he puts his success down to, is probably those two things: is the 1% better every day and never giving up. The franchisees, I think, who do really well, have just got really, really good attitudes, and they're not the victim. They take ownership of their situation, and they look at everything about what can I do to be better. Even if it's a customer complaint they don't think that is justified in any way, they look at themselves and go, well, what can I have done better to avoid that situation? And they don't blame anyone else for their failure, and they give credit to others for their success, and they're humble and stuff like that. So, the guy who runs our Gym's Clean Vision is a really multi-millionaire. Doesn't need to work, but he's a humble guy. He loves it. And, he's always looking at how he can improve every day. And that sort of filters across the group. But that's a couple of pieces of advice. But I think, from the successful people that I meet, it's not the smartest person. It's not the best looking person. It's the person who have that never give up attitude, really good attitude, and their resilience. And they can get through a lot. And, people who are just willing to learn all the time as well. I think a lot of our franchisees who actively try and learn with horticulture, or always try and improve to build their business and do things and stay active in the mind that way, do really well. But they're the sort of things that I picked up from people. And a great example of this is a guy called John Wild. So I recommend some people look online. John Wild's, he has a really interesting style of speaking. Like, he would not be a professional speaker, but he's a really likable bloke. And this is a bloke who just personifies that really good attitude. It's his responsibility. He's got 7 staff in his business. And if you met John in isolation and you spoke to him, and if I asked you, how much is that guy earning? You'd probably not say what he would earn, because you just, the way he speaks and presents and stuff like that. But he's salt of the earth bloke, got a really good heart, good attitude, real resilient, really good to his people. And it just seems to be that, for me, from what I've met, it's not always the case in life. There's a lot of bad people with a lot of money who's successful, but really good people who've got good character, good morals, do the right thing and try and do their best, generally succeed and work out. And that doesn't matter in what field you're working in, marketing, in corporate, whatever. I find those sorts of attributes see to hold people in good stead. And the ones who don't succeed, look, you may succeed being an absolute prick to people in corporate environments or whatever, but the ones who don't succeed, it's when they never take any accountability. They don't want to learn anything new. And it's always someone else's faults, and they're the ones who never do well.
I don't think we could have picked a better thing to finish on. So, people, you can follow Joel on LinkedIn, or you can just follow the gym stuff. I think the LinkedIn stuff, if you like the sort of conversations that we've had on here, they've been really good. But look, I appreciate you coming on, Joel, and especially considering that you're such an evil person for considering even to work for somebody who isn't independent.
Yes.
But yeah, was it fun? Was it?
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Sorry, but it's past midnight. It's past midnight over in your area of the world as well now. We've just cracked that 10 minutes ago. So people, I don't know why. I gave him options and he picked the option that was going to end up. It didn't click. I've got this late night option on specifically for.
I was surprised that you did, actually. Yeah. So I thought maybe because you're working during the day, obviously you do it at night and stuff. But no, look, thank you very much for the opportunity, Luke. And nice words at the start about LinkedIn and stuff as well. Been great chatting with you as well. I've got a website, joelkleber.com, which I do share some things on as well. But I really appreciate the opportunity. I know we seem like the big multinational and the big evil sort of corporation sometimes, but we're all ultimately in the same field, trying to promote how good of an industry and how good of people are the local family businesses that work in the fields. And look, if you do see some things sometime which might get you back up a bit, don't get too offended by them. They might just be me doing a bit of a troll or something like that. But look, always, if you're an independent and you want to give us some feedback on what we do as well, that'd be fantastic. Send us an inbox or give me a comment or something like that. And I've actually trying to get on the podcast that we do ourselves. I'm trying to get more people on. So maybe have yourself on, actually even come on the Jim's Mowing podcast. Maybe talk about your journey from an outsider's perspective would be really good as well. So, I'm probably going to start trying to do that a bit more, getting some suppliers and maybe other industry professionals besides franchisees into our content to try and share the love a bit with the industry.
Sounds like a good idea, mate. I don't know if you've noticed, I like a podcast,
You do. Well, it'd be great to have someone like you, because
at
it's
least
obviously
a couple.
Yeah, because our franchisees obviously listen to it, and it's always franchisees. So it'd be great to have someone like yourself who's not a franchisee, who's running another business, and to hear how you do it. I think it'd be really valuable to them.
You're right. You've given me the opportunity to follow through with what I was telling other people to do. I'm going to slag Jim out as much as possible. Completely change my personality.
I won't edit
it. And you can't edit it because you told me on here you wouldn't. So
I won't edit it.
Anyway,
be on me to respond. So hopefully I can respond to them. But it would be great to have you on. And I'm sure the boys there are franchisees who I know listen to your podcast a lot, and maybe some franchisors as well. So it's great job to you. So I know there's a few other blokes who do the lawn care podcast, and we appreciate you having our franchisees on and Jim from time to time. So I know they really get a kick out of it as well.
Yeah, I feel like I would like there to be some level of, you've got to have healthy competition, but like a harmony between any franchise, whoever it is, Fox, VIP, gyms, and independents. And because I believe, for me personally, what I've tried to do with this podcast is to just open up knowledge in terms of techniques or knowledge of gardening and pricing. And, my most popular episode is my 4th episode, which was how to work out your pricing. And I just went through, and I don't know how many people are in the country in terms of contractors. I've heard it's about 18,000 from registered business names. I'd never checked that. Do you know how many people would be contractors in the country?
No, I wouldn't have that number. I've never looked it up, but I probably should.
So that podcast on how to price has been listened to. It depends what your channels listen. Has been clicked on it and at least started close to 10,000 times. And I don't know how. So if you've got 2,300 gyms, I don't know how many independents there are. And, I just was like, this is what I did. And to work out actually how to price a lawn mowing service. And like, that is, for me, it's one of the most, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, because it's, instead of hoarding the information, like how many people, anyways, get better. But like we talked about right at the beginning, is when I have my prices up here at a healthy, sustainable level, not a rip-off merchant level, and you're struggling, you lift your prices up, and then we quote at the same property. We don't undercut each other and cut each other down. And the gyms and all that sort of stuff, we're kind of on the same team in that specific aspect, that by giving good quality service, we increase the reputation of the industry. And by charging well, we make it a more sustainable, less burnout, less people dropping out. And it can only be good to have a collaboration between them. Have your differences. Some people don't want to run their own business to the same degree as independent. Some people think Jim looks really good in a size 8 pink women's shirt, like they want to be involved in that. So, no judgment, but anyways, you were going to say something before.
No, but I agree with you. Quoting's a big issue for our guys when they start as well. And there's always, any advice I can get on quoting is obviously consumed a lot, as you can tell. I'm probably hundreds of our franchisees may have listened to that podcast about pricing, because it's such a topic where people want to get so much more knowledge on it. But you're spot on. I think, the more we can raise the industry, the better. And look, I've actually heard from Jim directly that occasionally a lot of older independents might email him sometimes and say, thank you for raising the prices in the industry, because obviously the gyms guys, we're not the cheapest, and we charge a pretty premium rate, but provide a quality job, and that allows, as you said, other people to bring their prices up, and hopefully more people to stay in business and not get burnt out and disappear when times get a bit tough. But no, your podcast is great, mate. I'm loving what you do, and what I've got respect for anyone who does a podcast. It's not easy. I know it's very hard to do, and you obviously put money into hiring staff to help you out and stuff like that. And it's just great, and you think about what you said, that pricing podcast you've done will have a direct impact on someone's profitability in their business, and might be the difference between them staying in business or not in business, or affording sort of certain things, and you might never know the true impact of that. But that's something that's really, really important. And more people doing what you're doing, the better. And I think there's a lot of room for people in gardening, whether you media with content and stuff, to just get more involved with it. But I appreciate what you've done with the gyms guys as well, and having Jim on and myself, and giving us the platform to talk about what we do and go off on a whole bunch of tangents. But I'd love to have you on our podcast as well to talk to our guys and maybe talk about the pricing stuff, because that's such a popular episode for us. That might help us as well with some of our listeners to go over it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's do that pricing, because I'm always talk about spreadsheets, lest I have to slip in fake stories about how horrible Jim is. So, all right, mate. Thank you so much. You got to go to bed. I don't know if you have wife and kids and things like that who are just thinking, "What the hell is this guy doing?" But yeah, anyway,
I normally work late nights.
Yeah. All right, and people, I'll see you in the next podcast.
Thank you.